Good morning. All right, so we have got about 4 hours together today. I want you to know that even though I've got a plan, that I'm okay going off of script, and I want to just essentially talk about the things that you want to talk about. And so don't hesitate as we're having this conversation just to speak up. Any questions I do want you to ask, and I suspect that we will have some questions. Also want to have a good time, all right? I want to have a really good time. Aaron, you seem so tight over there. I'm sorry you're squished, all right? But hopefully you'll still have a good time in 4 hours, all right? So one question I do have as we start off is, what's the right mindset for this room, Jimmy?
Focus.
So what do you mean by that? So when you say focus, because it'd be easy to not be very focused, especially we're in Miami, right?
Yeah.
All right, what does that look like? How does that manifest?
To take away the three things that we want to implement from the seminar.
All right, so success means each one of us takes away 3 things from this seminar. In focus, in this context, you're going to be tempted to do a few things throughout this day, aren't you? What are some of those temptations?
Check your email.
You're going to be tempted. Some of you are, in fact, checking your email literally right now as I'm talking, all right, which is amazing, right, which is amazing. There's this great saying that says, wherever you are, be there. Probably heard it before, right? And so we have a choice, especially in what's interesting about a mastermind, which I love, because I do a lot of speaking to really, really large groups. The great thing about a mastermind is the success of everyone in this room is contingent on everyone else in this room. Somebody checks out, the room starts to check with it. Somebody is all in, everybody wants to be all in with it. So I'm going to ask you to give your energy to the room today. I believe that's our fiduciary as a group, and certainly as a mastermind, that is our commitment. Fair, everyone? Fair? Okay, great. All right, what else? Lucy, what would you say you have to, what's the right mindset for this room? What else other than focus?
I'd say be open-minded.
It'd be pretty easy to shut things out here, wouldn't it? Why do we do that? We hear new stuff, and we just push against it. Why is that?
Human nature?
Very human nature, right? It's almost like sometimes we hear the new thing, and even though the person didn't say it, we take it as an attack on the way we've always been doing the thing, like we've been doing something wrong. So I am not here to point out anyone's flaws, although I have looked at every single one of your websites, and I will be showing some of your websites today. Now, before you say it, no one here needs to say we're currently in the process of redoing our website. Because is your website ever done? Yes or no? It's never done. I love it when someone says, we just redid our website. You haven't redone anything. That's like watering a plant and saying it's done. This is like it has to be. We've got to look at these things as evergreen, organic. Now, I'm not here to embarrass anybody, though. I will point out a few things. But as a whole, this is a group of high performers. You wouldn't be in a mastermind if that wasn't the case. I mean, that's just reality. I've looked at, in my day, thousands and thousands and thousands of websites. Okay? And as a whole, this room is doing quite well. All right, I'll tell you that right now. You're doing quite well. With that being said, we've got a lot of opportunities. But that open-mindedness, Lucy, is a big deal. And one thing about open-mindedness, it's interesting, one of the things that we oftentimes hear is I might share these things. You hear what I say, Lucy, but then there's a voice in the back of your head that says, but that's not the way it's done in the legal space. This is the easiest thing that you can say today, and also the laziest. One of the things I oftentimes hear in the legal space is we've got regulation, we've got compliance, we've got this, we've got that. And what's interesting is I know for a fact that everything I'm going to show you today, you could do if you wanted to do. And also, if you want to find reasons as to why it can't be done, that will also be the case. You'll find whatever you want to find. But if you want to do these things, I promise you can do them, and they work very, very well in the legal space. Fair? And so please don't come from this space of that's not how it's going to work. Or from the space, Craig, you hear what I say today, and you say to yourself, Marcus, that might have worked for you as a pool guy in Virginia, but you see here at my firm, which is where? Where are you located?
Albany, New York.
In Albany, New York, our situation is what?
We're different.
We're different. How many firms in this room, Craig, believe they're different than everybody else?
I think we all do.
We all do. We all think, fundamentally, we've got this special sauce. Like, literally, if I met with each one of you, you would say to me, you see, Marcus, we're actually not like most firms in the room. That's what we would all say. It's wild. I know this because this is what I do. Why do we all say that, Jan? Because we like, she said, because we're different. Because we want to feel what, Jan? We want to feel special, unique, all right? And you are special or unique in your own way. But I can tell you this, the reason why people engage you, the reason why they give you their business, the reason why they give you their livelihood, whatever that thing is because they feel an emotion towards you more so than they felt towards everyone else. It's the emotion that allows someone literally to put their life in your hands. What's that emotion, Carl? They've got to feel what? It's the same thing.
Trust.
Yes. It's the same thing that allows you to say to me as a pool guy, here's money in exchange for a good or a service. It doesn't change. Carl, if I said to you, is trust going to be fundamental to your firm in 10 years, what would you say?
Yes.
If I said in 20 years, what would you say?
Yes.
Absolutely. How do you know that to be true?
How do I know what to be true?
How do you know trust is going to be fundamental to your business in 20 years?
Trust and confidence is the only way to stay in business because it gets you repeat.
That's right. When did trust start? We don't know when it started. So therefore, we also know it doesn't have an end. You see, trust is a principle. But if I said to you, Carl, is Google going to be fundamental to your business in 20 years? What would you say?
I don't know.
You should say no. And you're right. You don't know. But I can give you the answer. The answer is no. In 20 years, Google's not going to be fundamental to your business. Because Google is a platform. It's not a principle. You see, platforms, they come, eventually they go. That's the one guarantee with the platform. But trust as a principle is not. Today, my goal is to show you how you can become the most trusted voice in your space, Arthur. That's my goal. If you want to become the most trusted voice in your market, and I mean that, I'm going to give you a system for it. I've helped a lot of people all over the world do it. Doesn't matter the industry. It's the same patterns over and over again. Because psychology is psychology, trust is trust. And the way we get it is the same way. And so, if you do not resonate with becoming the most trusted firm in your space, it's okay during the break if you leave, Aaron. But if that resonates with you, stick around. I'm going to show you the way. Cool?
Cool.
All right. Aaron, anything else that we ought to do today to make it great that we didn't mention already? We said we got to be open. We're not going to come from this place of we're different. We said we got to be focused. We can't be checking our email the entire time, right?
Yep.
Anything else, Aaron, that you can think of?
Got to be willing to learn.
Just got to be willing to learn, right? Just got to be willing to learn. Just open yourself up today. If you're going to do it, let's just open ourselves up. Ask yourself, is it possible that I do the thing? Don't doubt what's possible. Come from the place of, yeah, but could I do that? And if I did do that, would that induce more trust? Cool. Now, I'm curious to know, before I get going, what's your biggest frustration with your marketing right now? Adam, what's yours? What's your biggest frustration with your marketing right now, if you had to say?
I don't think we're reaching enough potential clients.
Okay, we're not reaching enough potential clients. If you had to say why, and it's no right or wrong answer, but if you had to say why you're not reaching enough, like what's falling short with your marketing, if you had to make a guess, what would you say?
Several facets, SEO, or community, or repeat clients, or medical providers, and I'm not doing enough to keep all of them going.
Yeah,
as high as they could be.
a lot of balls to juggle there, and to try to, marketing, to be clear, it's getting harder. It's getting harder. And to your point, you got to juggle a lot today. And you said SEO is one. We're going to talk about that today. That one's really fascinating, okay? What's another, what's someone else share, what is your biggest marketing struggle right now? Donna Lynn, what would you say?
Our intake.
Your intake. What do you mean by that? Just, I'm going to make sure I understand.
I mean, our conversion is not where it should be. Yeah, so it's the tail end of marketing.
Okay, so you said, and I just want to make sure I understand, are you getting enough actual contacts and they're just not converting into that client? Is that the issue? Or are you just not getting enough contacts in general?
No, I think we're getting enough contacts. We could always get more.
Uh-huh. But we're not converting enough of those.
Correct.
And if you had to say why you're not converting enough, if you had to say.
I had to say. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons.
Hey, real quick question. And I know this is a lot of this for you all. You know this is table stakes anyway. I was actually talking with Carl this morning about it. What is the average time that you have a conversation with the lead when they reach out? How long, on average, and this includes weekends, weeknights, whatever, does it take?
2 days.
What's that?
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. If you set up a system where you get back to your leads within 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, we call it the 5-minute rule, there is a 900% increase in the people that now will become an actual contact. Many of you are frustrated to death with the fact that you get these people that reach out and then you never talk to them again, correct? Happens to you all the time, right? The most important component of this is what's called the 5-minute rule. The 5-minute rule is literally, these days, almost everything when it comes to marketing. 900%. Because the first firm that talks to the person, the first firm that talks to them, has an actual conversation, they become a client what percentage of the time? Who's got the number? Who knows? What do you think, Daniel? If you're the first firm to talk to the person, you become their attorney what percentage of the time?
100%.
If you had to make a guess, it's about 75%. So the whole name of the game for you is you got to be what? First. First one to have a conversation. You must be first to have a conversation, which is why if it's taking you, because what happens after, Henry, 5 minutes? Somebody just fills out a form, says, I want to talk to an attorney, right? 10 minutes, they could, in 10 minutes, they could have already talked to somebody else. They could have gotten a call from their son at school who's sick, and they got to go pick them up. And now that they're thinking about that, their HVAC already broke. 15 minutes later, everything's changed in 15 minutes. 5 minutes. Raise your hand if you can say, realistically, that you're reaching out in a phone call format, at least, with 80% of your leads within 5 minutes. Okay? So, which by the way, my swimming pool company, as I'll talk to you about here in a bit, this 5-minute rule applies to us. It applies to every industry. We're now using AI on the weekends to have full-blown conversations with people. And it's working very effectively. And so whatever it takes to be first, we've got to be first. Much of what I talk to you about today is going to help you to be first. All right, any other frustrations? Anthony, if I said, what's your biggest marketing frustration right now, what would you say?
I'd say regional firms coming in and stealing cases.
So regional firms coming in and stealing cases. Now,
Well, not stealing, but just additional competition from regional firms.
okay, additional competition from regional firms. What are they doing better, if you had to say, than you are from a marketing perspective?
I'll let him answer that.
Driving up the cost of leads.
Driving up the cost of leads. Sounds like you have a really good sentiment towards your competitors right now. It is what it is, all right? Y'all got a pretty solid website, by the way, Monty. Okay, you've done a pretty good job. Looked at it. So driving up the cost of leads, what are you doing from a marketing perspective that is different than your competitors right now? And I mean truly different.
I don't know that I know the answer to that.
Cool. I think that's a really fair answer. Today, you're going to get a bunch of ideas of things that you could be doing. Okay, that's my commitment to you. Let's do one more. Cecilia, your biggest struggle.
Well, I'm the litigator, I'm the one who receives the calls after they've gone into litigation.
And if there is anything that you could change about the calls you receive because the marketing department maybe didn't set them up as well as they could have, what would it be?
Making sure that they are serious clients.
Making sure they're serious.
Serious clients with big injuries, things like that, because I do both med mal and I do the motor tort stuff.
Yep.
And sometimes they're just very minor stuff.
Yep.
Which isn't a big problem, but the medical negligence ones, I don't want to get them. If I'm doing an attorney touch with it and I'm talking with them, I want to make sure that they have really serious injuries, not just, the IV blew my vein the first time and
Right.
now I've got a big bruise.
Yes. Right. All right, good one. All right, I think you'll see an application for that today because if we do it right, marketing and the quality of the leads are as good or as bad as the messaging that brought them there, right? And so if we say, I'm a little bit disappointed with some of the conversations I have, there's always some second and third order effects that are happening that we could be improving. Okay, good stuff. So my quick story, I used to be a pool guy. I started a swimming pool company in Virginia called River Pools in 2001. Things were going okay for us up until this particular date. Anybody remember this date right here? Any good historians? What's this date represent? Yeah, crash. Good or bad day for pool guys there, Neil? What do you think? Yeah, not very good because at the time, most people, still to this day, most people get money to buy a swimming pool by getting some type of second mortgage or home equity line. And after this day, we had the bubble burst, and now suddenly you've got just like mass panic. Within 48 hours of the crash, we lost 5 deposits. People that said, hey, we were going to get this pool, but now we just don't feel like we have the confidence in the market to do that. So we lost about $250,000 in business in the first 48 hours, which for some of you might not sound like a lot, but for a swimming pool company in Virginia, that's a lot. And then over the coming weeks, it got worse and worse. So by January 2009, we were looking at filing bankruptcy. The problem was, as many of you know, if I file bankruptcy, I'm going to lose my home. My 2 business partners at the time would have lost their homes. My 16 employees at the time would have lost their jobs. So we had to figure out how to get back over that edge that we were going over. We didn't have much time, and we certainly didn't have much money. But the beauty behind pain and suffering is that it forces us to do what, Blake? Change. Forces us to do things that we probably knew we should have been doing a long time ago, yet now we feel this thing called pain. Which is interesting because when the market is bad, that's when innovation is the best. When everything is fat and happy and we are just loaded with leads, now we just stop innovating, just the natural human way. And so it was during this time period that I started to research online and see these fancy phrases like inbound marketing, content marketing, social media. And what I heard in my simple pool guy mind was, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions, worries, fears, and you're willing to address them online better than anybody else, like truly better than anybody else, you might save your business. So I said, if there's one thing that I can do well is I can listen and I can address those things better than anybody else has done with pools. And so I went to my business partners and I said, we're going to become like the Wikipedia of pools. And we called this simple strategy, they ask, you answer. We said, we are going to be like the WebMD of pools. If anybody has a question, they're going to learn it from us, good, bad, or ugly. And to make a long story short, as Rob said, we would go on to become the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. And they ask, you answer, it would go on to become a book. And this book has now been read by over 100,000 people, and it's been applied in businesses all over the world. It has the 3rd version coming out, and that 3rd version is actually called Endless Customers. It's coming out in April. And so what I'm going to share with you today is many of the principles that were found in They Ask You Answer, but are now also, because we have to iterate because of what's happening, the changes, the headwinds that we have. Endless Customers is the most up-to-date version of what's happening in the world of digital and how you can become, how you can follow this system to become the most known and trusted, in this case, attorney in your market. All right? So that's They Ask You Answer. Now, let's talk about trends that matter for a second. And these are not all the trends that matter, but these are going to be affecting us for years to come. And it's important that you, whether you're in marketing or whether you're the owner of your firm, whatever it is, you're very aware of these trends. All right? So trend number 1, it's the 80% trend. The average buyer today, when I say buyer, customer, client, and this is across the world, okay? Across the world. The average buyer today is 80% through their buyer's journey by the time they reach out to a company online, okay? So by the time they call you, by the time they fill out that form on your website, on average, and I know sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, on average, they are 80% through the buyer's journey. This is why there have been times, Patrick, when you have met with a salesperson. Have you met with a salesperson in the last 2 years and you could tell that you knew more about that product than that salesperson knew about that thing that they were supposed to be selling you? Has that ever happened to you? Absolutely. Happens all the time. What enables you now to know more than a lot of salespeople know? This device. You are as informed as you have ever been. In fact, we're all becoming essentially infovores. We're more educated, we're more informed. It doesn't mean we don't start off ignorant, and it doesn't mean you don't get some leads that are totally ignorant. But it does mean, as a whole, people are more informed than they've ever been before. Would you say that's accurate, Stephen? Do you use the internet? I want to make sure you're not Amish. You're cool, okay? Which I love the Amish people, by the way, all right? I love them. All right, so if this number's true, then it means something very important. Which department of your organization, and I know you might not say you have these departments, but just work with me. Which department of your firm has a greater impact on getting the actual, let's say, client? Is it the sales side, which you might not call it sales, but is it the sales side or is it the marketing side? Which one? It is marketing and it's not close. There's a lot of people that, I've had people tell me before, we do great when we talk to them. If we talk to them, we get them. Some of you feel that way, correct? If we talk to them, we get them. The problem is, oftentimes we're not talking to enough. We're not talking to enough. Now, what's interesting about this is, when companies are in financial trouble, oftentimes the first department that gets cut is what? Marketing. Why do we do that, Jordan?
They think it's going to save them money.
They think it's going to save them money. Are you a marketer?
I'm not.
You are not. Wait, by the way, we're all marketers, Jordan. We're all trying to persuade someone to do something that they don't want to necessarily do, right? We're all marketers. So, we have to understand that we must win the 80%. When they're online and they're researching, in this case, an attorney, and they're vetting, and they have questions, and they have fears, and they have worries, and they have concerns, we have to understand that we got to win during that time period. Because if we don't win, what's that mean, Jimmy? We're losing. Somebody else is. The question is, who are they learning from? Are they learning it from you, or are they learning it from a competitor? Or are they learning it from AI? This is the world that we live in. So we've got to make sure that we win the 80%. That's trend number one. All right, trend number two. SEO, search engine optimization doesn't mean what it used to. Has anybody noticed SEO is getting harder? Have you seen it, Michael? It's getting harder. How have you noticed it getting harder?
Leads are there, but the traffic is there, but it's not necessarily leading to the leads.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let's look at like what's happening now. Let's say I went online right now and I did top 10 personal injury lawyers in Florida, which, by the way, that's a pretty common search. This is one of those searches that you want to own, correct? You want to be first to show. Well, these days, here's why it's so interesting. First thing that is showing is sponsored search. But in this case, the sponsored search is what type of sponsored search? That's right. So we've got the screened, the Google screened. Which, by the way, has everyone in here done your, essentially, all of your paperwork, digitally speaking, so that you've been screened by Google? If not, for the love, leave and go do that and then come back. All right? So this is the first thing that we see. Paid doesn't really feel paid, doesn't look paid, but it's paid, it's sponsored. As we scroll down the page, continuing down this road, then we've got the Google map. So we've essentially done a big scroll twice now. We've done a paid scroll. Now we've done this. And then we see the Google map. And then finally, we've got this right here. And it's not until they have scrolled almost 3 times, and we've got the people also asked section, that now we've got the first one in search engine results. So that's a huge difference, right? Because you're number one. This person here, the National Academy of Personal Injury Attorneys, they're ranked number 1. The problem is, they're how far down the page? We're talking literally about 3 full scrolls down the page. So the idea of being number 1 doesn't mean nearly as much as it meant at one time. So this is affecting a lot of us, which means we've got to try to do our best to show up everywhere else. But this has become a big, big issue. Now, trend number 3, 0 click. Jay, do you know what 0 click is? Have you ever gotten your answer before going online, Jay, and you didn't click on one of those blue links to a website, but you still got your answer?
Are you talking about the AI thing at the very top?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's an example of 0 click. So in the past, that website would have gotten your visit, right? Because in order to get any answer, you had to click on a blue link to a website. But today, not so much the case. So 0 click is here. So as an example of this, how long does it take to settle a personal injury case in Florida? Another common question, okay? Once again, we've got our sponsored results. That's the first thing that's going to show up. And after we do the sponsored results, we're going to see more sponsored results. And after we see those sponsored results, then we've got an AI overview. And this AI overview is coming from what? What's this coming from? Somebody's website in this room, maybe, right? Which is why the AI overview's got a little link, a little link, a little link, because AI is only as good as the people that are feeding it. So when you get terrible answers from AI, generally the reason is because we have somehow not provided great answers for AI to consume. And so we've got this AI overview that after this sponsored search, now they're getting their answer from here. And then finally, we've got one main answer that shows on Google right here. So the main answer they gave was 12 to 14 months. Then we've got people ask, and then we've got, finally, those results. This is 0 click. Most people are going to say, okay, I got my answer, and I didn't have to click on a website. Now, Neil, is this going to affect you as we go forward?
Yes.
Very much. What's the solution?
I mean, it seems like the solution would be to be one of the people who's providing the answer that spits out the results when they do the AI search.
That's certainly one of the solutions, right? We can either complain about it and say, I wish it would go back to the way that it was, which we all know how that works out. Or we can say, well, these are the cards that we now got to play. But not only that, but it leads us to our next trend, Neil, which is this. Google, at least Google search as we know it, is dying. I don't say this in like some celebratory way. Raise your hand if you're using Google less than you were 2 years ago. All right? And so, Carl, you're using it less than you were. Sierra, you're using it less than you were. How so? How are you using it less than you were? What are you using instead? So you're using ChatGPT. Why are you using ChatGPT? Why? What made you say, I'm going here versus necessarily going to Google?
It has more capabilities.
So it's got more capabilities to do what?
I mean, it can do anything for you, but it's pulling what we assume is the correct answer right away.
Yeah, so you feel like I'm getting the thing that I want, it's better, it's faster. Now, generally, this is the argument we make. That may or may not always be true, but that is the argument that we make. And so because of this, it's fascinating. When it comes to law, we know that many of us, some of us in this room, have built our entire business on trying to show up for the keywords that people are searching. Rick, if this is your entire strategy in 2030, where's your business going to be? Absolutely in the tank. So we have got to make sure that we are not building our house on Google. And not just Google search, but also Google Ads. Because, Stephen, is it Stephen or Stephen? Stephen. Because from California? Yes. Okay, good, I remember. All right, so the reason for this is because when we think about ads, somebody might say, well, ads are still going to work. Arguably, the problem is, if suddenly in 5 years, 90% of the people today that are using Google are now using some AI tool where there is no paid, sponsored result, what's that mean for your business? I could be in bad shape, right? What percentage of your leads right now come from Google Ads? 30%. All right? What about you guys, Monty?
That gets into an attribution thing, so it's really hard to tell, I'd say, for sure.
You should know this, though, Monty. If you're using the right tools, you can know exactly how many leads you're getting from Google Ads per month, for the most part. That is the type of thing that you should know. Are you using a HubSpot or anything like that? This is the type of thing that you want to know, because how do you know if you're going to spend more if you can't give revenue attribution to ads, right? Sure. So in this, now I know sometimes you can't always track an ROI, but when it comes to something like Google Ads, if you're using the right tool, oftentimes you can. You can measure that. And you're going to be able to want to justify that. All right? Aaron, what percentage of your leads are coming from Google right now?
That's 70.
70%. And of those 70%, is that paid for the most part?
LSA, SEO, and LSA, SEO.
Okay, good. All right. Patrick, what about you?
23.3%.
Oh, wow, that was a pretty dang good answer. I was on point there, Patrick. All right. All right, so 23%, where are the rest coming from? Just curious.
I mean, we've got TV.
Yep.
You've got billboard.
So you're spending in a litany of ways.
Correct.
Okay, good. John, what about you? Same firm, different firm?
We're together.
Okay. Lloyd, I saw you on there, man. You got some good videos, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, I enjoyed them.
A third.
A third from Google. And of those from Google, what percentage are paid and what percentage are organic? Do you have any idea?
They're pretty much all paid.
All paid.
Yeah.
All paid. What are you spending per month on paid right now?
Well, we're 2 different markets, so we spend about $60,000 per market.
About $60,000 per market per month? All right, good, right. Now, if, hypothetically, let's say in 5 years, that literally doesn't work at all, what do you think how's that going to affect your business? Just being hypothetical, let's say 90% less people are using paid ads and clicking on said ads. How would that affect your business in 5 years?
If we don't adjust, it'll go down, or we'll be out of business.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I say these things because if there's ever a time that we should be like, attention, like, woo, we got to pay attention. For 20 years, 25, we've been able to use Google, and if we put in enough money and set up the things like they should be set up, for the most part, we could guarantee leads. And that potentially is literally going away. It's wild. So if there's ever a time where we've got to say, all right, I can't be relying on Google, now is the time. And then finally, trend number 5. Trend number 5. Raise your hand if you're using a marketing agency. If you're using a marketing agency of some type. Okay? So one of the big trends that we see is that people are dropping their marketing agencies and their SEO companies. All right? You're seeing it a lot. Why is this happening? Let me just give you a couple regular trends here. In 2021, 30% of all brands plan to leave their marketing agency within 6 months. That's 21. In 22, that number went to 38%. In 23, 55% were ready to cut ties within the next 6 months. Anybody have any idea as to why that is? Rob, why do you think that is? Why are so many people, so many companies less patient and have shorter now relationships with these marketing firms?
I think first of all, people are bringing tools in-house.
Yep.
So I'd say that's probably the number one reason. Number two is everybody wants the best thing since sliced bread. So we change for whatever we think is the current trend in the moment, the next best person.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, the companies that are doing extraordinary things online, that are becoming the most known and trusted brands online, are not using an agency to produce their content. The ones that are doing extraordinary things, that are really becoming known, they are producing their own stuff.
So who would you say that is, Marcus? Who is that?
In terms of,
What brands that you said are doing great? Who would that be?
oh, when I say a brand, I'm talking about just organizations across the board. Could be a small business, medium size, big businesses. You know, like one of the most extraordinary brands in the world right now is Liquid Death. All right, Liquid Death. Now, Liquid Death, you've probably heard of them. You've seen them in the convenience stores. Do you know what they sell? Water. They sell water, but it looks like what, Blake? It looks like an energy drink. All right? They took over the entire beverage industry, and what's wild is they have 6 people on their creative staff. 6 people. But they did things differently than everyone else. And so one of the big points to today, Patrick, is I'm going to try to get us seeing is we can't continue to market the way we've always marketed if we're going to expect to get extraordinary results. And we've got to own our marketing. We've got to be the ones that are holding the paintbrush. Because if we're just paying a company and they're holding the paintbrush and we think we're going to be extraordinary, let's say with video, never going to happen. It just doesn't happen because you're going to get your 10 videos a year from that production company and it's not going to be enough. And those 10 videos might look fine, but that is not built to last. And that's what many of us have done up to this point. Okay? All right. And so we've got this big exodus of companies that are learning to do marketing in-house because this is the way. Okay. Any questions about that? So
How long does that trend you say would last versus ad agency catching up to it? Because it sounds like ad agency behind. Do they catch up and then it goes back?
Yeah, Jimmy, I don't think, as a whole, when we look at what you can and should be doing, if you said to me, why would we work with an agency today? Now, by the way, I own what might be considered an agency. But the difference is we don't do the stuff. We teach companies how to do it because if you're doing it for them, they never do anything extraordinary. Like over and over again. It is the difference between teach a person how to fish versus give them the fish. If you teach them how, they might actually catch a whopper. Otherwise, they're never going to be great, right? They're going to be as good as the last fish that you gave them. I do not think agencies are ever going to be the same again. I do think if you're outsourcing anything, I would be outsourcing potentially website design build because that's still, most of us don't have somebody in-house that can do a lot of those things, although you should be able to do 90% of your own website changes in terms of like adding content, tools, etc. If you have to make a call to do that, you're in trouble. Paid ads, although it's getting easier to do it in-house, paid ads is another one that I would say potentially to outsource. Those are the two majors. Everything else should be in-sourced if you want to do something extraordinary. For the most part. There's going to be a few exceptions here and there. All right? You feel that? All right, cool. Yes?
If you're talking about even if paid ads have that outsourced, but from this mastermind group, actually, they've taught us, and we've seen it with Rob's group, if they're looking at stuff all the time and changing, I don't know what the hell they're doing, because I don't understand it, but they're changing shit every day. And it's making them.
At least they tell you they are.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay. But then they said that that's what you need. You need somebody that's actually looking at it every day, making the changes because.
I don't disagree.
Okay. Otherwise, you're setting it and forgetting it, kind of thing.
Well, that's the difference. Like, if you're going to bring it in-house, somebody has to own it, Lloyd, and own it responsibly. Do it the right way. But if you said to me, ultimately, are we going to do better if we owned it and somebody was really obsessing about it in-house? versus someone that had us and 25 other accounts, I'm going to say 100% of the time you want to own it in-house. But that's also one of those things where I said, like, if I'm going to say, if there's two things that you're probably going to outsource at least for a season, it's your website, design, build, and you're paid. And you're paid. But when it comes to video production, when it comes to all the content on your website, some of these other elements, whether it's email marketing, anything like that, we should be doing that in-house. All right? And we're going to talk more about that. So what's the future of search? Let's say we have a world that Google is not essentially a part of our life anymore in 5 years. And it may or may not be, but Google's really just becoming an AI company like the rest of them. It comes down to signals. Now, when we say signals, what we're talking about is every piece of content online that is about your company is a signal. Every review somebody leaves about you is a signal. Every video that you produce is a signal. Every social media post that someone makes about you or that you make about yourself is a signal. Everything is signals. AI will consume all of it. That podcast, that video, that text, signals, signals, signals. Your job is to make sure you, Aaron, have more signals than everyone else in your market. And if you are out-signaled because you're just not producing the content, then AI will get to the point where it doesn't know you exist. I mean, it'll know you exist, but it's not going to recommend you. And so much of your business is going to rise or fall in the very near future on whether or not AI is willing to recommend Aaron Tillman. I don't know if it's exciting, but it is what it is. So that means you better win the signal race. And what I'm showing you today are the signals that you should be producing. Okay? So that's where we're going. Everything is a signal. Every review is a signal. Now, our goal today, as I showed you, is I want to help you become the most known and trusted brand in your market. But the word brand is literally more important than it's ever been. Because when you can't rely on Google Ads, and when people stop paying attention to TV, they stop paying attention to all these other forms of outbound advertising that you might do. The thing that carries you is brand. Brand is becoming everything. And your obsession and my obsession has to be, how do I become the most known if I don't spend literally anything on, let's call it just paid advertising? How does everybody know who I am if I'm not just doing paid? That's what we have to figure out. Now, to do this, you got to be willing to do 4 things. And we're going to look at these 4 things over and over again today. Number 1, you got to be willing to talk about what others in your space are not willing to talk about. Ken, right now online, how much are you saying, talking about, subjects-wise, that we can safely say the majority of your competitors are not addressing, they're not saying, they're not talking about?
Very little.
Very little. Is there anything that you can think of, and that's the answer probably for most people in the room, all right? I think it's a very fair answer. Is there anything that you can think of where you're saying to yourself, yeah, this is something that we talk about online, but nobody else does?
Sure. We have community outreach to marginalized communities. Our podcast is about that.
Okay.
It's something that we do that is different than
Okay, so yeah, most probably don't have some type of like marginalized community outreach program, especially with a podcast, all right? Definitely creative, definitely different, okay? I like that, all right? Let's see here. Michael, would you say you're talking about anything consistently that the majority of your competitors are not talking about online?
That's our social. I mean, that's what we do.
Okay. So what would you say? Give me an example of something that you're going, like, he's like, wow, I can't believe Michael went there because I would never go there. Like, what's that?
Well, I do a lot in AI, but my market is referring attorneys. It's not necessarily the consumers.
So what are you talking about that your peers are not talking about online?
Just how we're using it, what it is, things like that.
Okay, so you're talking some about AI when others aren't talking about that so much, which I think is actually really smart. because those that act like they're not using AI, to me, I would actually feel less confidence in them if they acted like they were just, Fred Flintstone. I would be worried about that myself as a potential client. Okay? Henry, talking about anything different than anybody else in your space?
Probably not much.
Probably not much. We're going to show you some examples today. Number 2, you got to be willing to show, specifically with video, what others in your space are not willing to show. Aaron, what videos are you producing right now that you can confidently say 95% of our competitors have never produced a video like this before?
A lot of our organic social content, we try to get like the personal side of the owner of our firm.
That's everybody in this room, Aaron. That wasn't special. Give me something different.
I don't have anything for you.
All right. So, what you just said was great. What you just said was good, but it wasn't actually different. And so I want to push us today to say, what are we really doing that isn't just run-of-the-mill for our space? All right, good. Number 3, you got to be willing to sell in a way others aren't willing to sell. Who here is selling differently? Anyone? Is it Leah or Leah? Which one? Leah. Are you selling differently?
I wouldn't think so.
You wouldn't think so? People are funny about their sales process. They think they are really, really different. Most companies, not very different at all. Anybody here selling differently than your peers? It's okay. It's a mastermind. It's all safe. So we got to be willing to sell differently than everybody else. And then finally, number 4, we want to be more human than everyone else is willing to be. Now, Aaron, you alluded to that a little bit a second ago, but I want to push this conversation a little bit today. So today I'm going to show you how you can talk about show, sell, and be more human than your competitors in your space. Ideally, it's going to be in ways that you're not used to. Hopefully, some of these are going to make you uncomfortable. That's good. That's why we're here. We didn't come here to sing Kumbaya. Right, Rob? Because if we sing Kumbaya the entire time, it means that we're all in agreement and we're probably not growing. But if there's a little bit of this like discomfort, this idea of like, I don't know about that, that's actually really, really good. That's what we want. That's what we have to strive towards. That's what we've got to be thinking about. Okay. Good. So what's interesting is when it comes to marketing, and this is actually quite prolific and legal, we see more companies that are like the ostrich, and they don't do those 4 things that we just showed. Because the ostrich, when it has a question, a worry, concern, of course the myth is it buries its head in the sand. So how does this apply to us? Is there a question that you get all the time from potential clients that you do not address right now online? Daniel, can you think of one? A question that a lot of people want to know, a lot of people might ask, but you don't necessarily address it on your website. Or you don't address it online. You don't address it on your social. Can you think of one? Can you think of one?
Not really. We address a lot of
Okay. Do you address the question, what happens if I lose my case? Do you address the question? Yes or no?
Yes.
You address that question.
No, we don't. Well, over the phone we do it, but no.
Daniel, the phone doesn't count. I said online. Now, what percentage of people do you think are wondering, what happens if I lose my case? 100%. Guess what percentage of attorney websites address the single question, what happens if we lose? Nobody does. Nobody does. Now, maybe there's a person in this room that does, but it's interesting to me, the most prolific question that people have is what happens if I lose? We don't talk about it. Now, does that mean the fear just goes away, Daniel? Doesn't go away for the ostrich, does it? Already I say that, and some of you are saying, I would never talk about that online. I don't ever want to even give them the thought that we might lose and they might not win. My hope today is to change your paradigm to lean into every fear they have. You feel me, Rick? Would you be willing to address that question on your website?
You should.
I think you should, because you have certainly been asked before, correct? All the time, right? Like what percentage of people ask you, like, well, what happens if we don't win? People ask. So, can you become the most trusted voice in your market and ignore the fundamental questions, worries, and fears people have, Jay?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Can you become the most trusted voice in your market and ignore the fundamental questions, worries, fears, etc., that your potential clients have?
No, I think you got to bring out the figures.
You gotta
address it.
you gotta get in front of them. The greatest way in life to resolve a concern is to address it when?
Up front.
Up front, before it becomes a concern. Otherwise, we're backtracking, right? And so the key is that we are the ones that are leading this conversation. Now, here's what's powerful. In every industry, there's basically 5 subjects that run the internet in terms of 5 things that people research before they reach out to a company. It doesn't matter if you're hiring an attorney. It doesn't matter if you're looking to buy a lawnmower. It doesn't matter. What's one thing you always research before you reach out to a company, Julia?
The reviews.
Reviews. What's interesting about reviews, Julia, is you don't just want the positive reviews, do you?
No, the negative.
You want the negatives. Why? Are you a negative person, Julia? What's the reason for this?
No, because each person had a different, experience, so I want to know the good and the bad.
That's right. The thing about reviews is we want the good, the bad, and the ugly. In fact, Julia, if you're researching a company and there's 0 negative reviews, it makes you feel what?
There's something wrong with that.
There's something wrong with that company. They're too good. They're too perfect. But if you can see how someone handled a negative review, now all of a sudden you're like, they're real. And I just might be able to trust them. And you represent everybody in this room, Julia. What's funny about that is when it comes to reviews, oftentimes we don't like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That was the first one. Good one, Julia. What's another thing that you always research? You always research, Craig, before you reach out to a company. Any product, service, doesn't matter. What's something you always research?
Results, success rate, that sort of thing.
Well, I'm talking about any product, any service, so results, but how do you... Quality. And the way you find quality is you don't actually search the word quality, you search the word reviews and you search another phrase. Does anybody know what it is? Best. That's the second of the big 5, best. How many times have you gone online and researched the word best plus another phrase? Best, most, top. Doesn't matter, but you love to rank things. Don't you, Craig? Because you don't necessarily buy the best every time, but you at least want to get a sense for how they stack up against each other, correct?
Value.
Yeah, value. That's how you define value. What's another thing that you research every single time? Somebody hadn't said the number 1. Is it DeJewel? Yes, cost. Carl, why do you research cost?
You want to know whether you can afford it or whether you want to buy it.
Even you, as this high-end attorney, you are researching cost?
Yes.
Even if you can afford it, you still want to know.
Correct.
And that's because you want to make sure, once again, you're getting a good value, right? So cost, something we always research. So let me show you the big 5. So here's the big 5. This literally runs the economy of search. These are the questions that people have over and over and over again online. These are the things that you've learned over the course of 25 years of using Google that you research over and over again. In fact, on each one of these, I bet you're now up into the thousands of searches for these things. As buyers, as consumers, we want to know, how much is it? And anything that has to do with money and getting paid, we want to know. We want to know what are the problems, the negatives, the issues, not just the pros, the cons. How could this go wrong? How could this blow up in my face? Problems, we'll call that. Comparisons, you love to compare things online. We're constantly comparing things online. Number 3, 4, reviews. We love reviews, good, bad, and ugly, as we said. And finally, best. Now, here's what's fascinating. Buyers are obsessed with this. Decision makers are obsessed with this. Most companies don't want to talk about these things, generally speaking. Now, this room here does a better job than most. But Blake, if I said to you, what percentage of your content right now online addresses these 5 subjects? And try to be as realistic as you can, Blake. What would you say?
I mean, I'd probably say it's 60%.
60%.
Probably, yeah.
Are you sure about that, Blake? You might want to take that back quick.
I feel like we talk about
I'm going to pull up your website right now, Blake. All right, after we're done, I want you to tell me if you still believe the number 60%. All right? But I appreciate your faith in yourself. I think that's awesome. We all have to have that. Okay, good. Okay. So, we want to know these things. Today, I'm going to show you how you can talk about these things, how you should talk about these things. And then you're going to let me know, are we doing this well or not? If you want to send the right signals out, if you want to send the signals to AI, if you want to send the signals to Google, and if you want to send the signal to the people, to humans, that you are the voice of trust, Hugo, you need to be willing to talk about these 5 things. How well are you talking about these 5 things right now, if you had to say, on a scale of 1 to 10?
Like online or just?
Online.
Said we do like 50%, right?
All right? 50% is your guess? All right, when we're done, I want you to tell me that number again. Okay. So, let's start with this cost. Now, here's the part where I'm going to need your help. You're going to want to just think about your world as an attorney. And most of you in this room think that you address the question of cost, especially because you're saying to yourself, we make a big fuss about how there's no fees until we get paid. Yes, Marcus, we do this well. Hold your thought on that until we are fully done with this conversation. Cool, Carl? Okay? First, I want to do an exercise in psychology. By show of hands, how many of you have researched how much something cost online in the last year? By show of hands, right? Almost 100%. Now, when you're on a website and you're researching cost and price, Monty, and you cannot find it, what is the emotion you experience? Frustration. You're going to say that? We like to say that's the F word of the internet. Now, what gives you the right in that moment to feel so frustrated? You're the what? Consumer. I'm the consumer. I'm the buyer, and I'm trying to give you my money, and you're making it really difficult. Now, this is important. In that moment of frustration, Monty, do you sit there and say to yourself, well, I'm just going to keep on looking on this website until I find what I'm looking for? Do you say that?
Or not on the same website.
Not on the same website. In fact, guess how long somebody will stay on a website looking for cost or price information or money information? Remember, when we say cost or price, we're talking about just money in general. Any question about money, okay? Guess how long somebody will stay before they leave? Yeah, average 10 seconds. 30 seconds if you're from Canada. Because you're so much more patient than the rest of us. Anybody here from Canada? All right, well, good. It landed then. All right, now, in that moment of frustration, Monty, do you as the buyer, this is important, do you as the buyer, do you as the consumer, do you say to yourself, well, of course they're not talking about cost and price. They're a value-based business. I'm going to call them on the phone instead. Do you do that? No, because you as the buyer, as the searcher, you keep doing what? You keep searching, and you search until what happens? Until you find what you're looking for. And generally speaking, whoever gives you what you were looking for, they're going to get what? Your business. If not your business, they're going to get first contact, first phone call. Now, what's so interesting about this is the real reason we get so upset as businesses, as buyers, is because we know that they know as the business the answer. And because we know they know the answer, and they're not giving it to us, we now feel like they're doing what? Hiding something from us. And the moment you feel like anybody is hiding anything from you online, what happens? Trust is gone. Yet, what percentage of businesses in the world talk a lot about cost and price on their website? Not many. And again, hold your thoughts on legal for a second, because we're going to come to it. There's 3 major reasons why companies don't talk about cost and price, just generally speaking. Anybody have a guess as to why?
So they can change it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with that, Lloyd, and say a lot of people like to say every job is different. All right? And what's interesting about that, or the answer is it depends. It's no different if somebody says to you, how much am I going to get paid on a judgment if I have a particular accident? Your answer is what? Well, it depends. But if I said to you, now can you help me understand the factors that are going to drive the cost of a judgment up? Could you explain those factors, yes or no? If I asked you to explain the factors that would drive it down, could you explain that? Sure. If I said to you, I've had some people tell me what judgment I might get. Some have told me it's high. Some have told me it's lower. Can you help me understand why there's a general delta out there? Could you explain that? Sure. This is one of the ones that's easiest to explain, is this whole idea of cost, but most don't take the time to teach those things, okay? So that's the first reason, the old it depends. Second reason why we don't like to talk about about cost and price is because we say things like, well, if they see we're more expensive, then it just might scare them away. But the thing that actually scares us away online isn't when someone explains clearly why they're more expensive, but rather when what? When they say nothing at all, Jimmy. Which one is scarier to you online when you're researching? Getting no information or getting a very clear answer about why something is more expensive?
Yeah, no answer.
No answer bugs you to death.
I always feel like they're the more expensive ones.
That's correct. Naturally, you have like some bad assumptions about them because they're not willing to talk about the thing. Third reason why companies don't talk about cost and price is they say things like, well, I don't want my competitors to see it, which is really silly because if you've been in the game for any period of time, generally you've got a great sense as to what your competitors charge. They know what you charge. It's the big secret, non-secret. Now, that being said, how many of you do a great job of talking about everything to do with money and judgments and getting paid and really teach it at a world-class level on your website right now? Raise your hand if you do it. On a world-class level. All right? So we're going to come back to that in a minute, but I just want to give you a sense for how this worked for me as a pool guy, and then we're going to transition over to you. When I decided to embrace They Ask You Answer as a pool guy, first piece of content we put on our website was how much does a fiberglass pool cost? Now, how many pool companies in the world do you think had addressed that question on their website? What do you think, Hugo?
I say
None. And why? What were they afraid of? Well, I don't want to scare people away. If they see a pool is too expensive, every job is different. All right, it's very customized. I don't want my competitors to see it. It's all the same reason. And so we said, you know what? Buying a fiberglass pool, it's a lot like buying a car. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of accessories. And we explained everything that goes into buying, in this case, a swimming pool. And because we did that, something pretty amazing happened. From a search perspective, if you went online, you search anything to do with how much does a fiberglass pool cost, we were one of the first ones that you saw. Now, that's not a victory yet. Let's bring it to revenue, and then it's going to make a lot more sense. So here's a list. Now, stay with me. It's a little bit technical, but I promise it'll make sense. Here's a list of the number one phrases that generate the most traffic to the website over the next few years. So, for example, we had 13,000 people go to Google, typed in fiberglass pool prices. Of those 13,000, 30 of them filled out a form and said, I want to get a quote from you. Now, the reason why this conversion rate is so low is just because we could only service Virginia at the time. We grew and became a national company, but the point is that these 30 came from people that were searching fiberglass, in this case, pool prices. Now, the red arrows are phrases that when anyone searched that phrase, they landed on that article on the website, how much does a fiberglass pool cost? So we've got roughly 200 plus sales appointments that occurred from people that landed on that article, how much does a fiberglass pool cost? Now, here's the important question. If that article's never written, if we never address the subject, how many of those 200 plus appointments would have occurred, Jan? None. Why? Because they would have gone somewhere else, because they wouldn't have found us. But in this case, they did find us. And many of them ended up filling out a form saying, I want to get a quote. And many of them ended up buying. We know the names of the ones that bought. We know the value of their pools. And therefore, I can tell you without equivocation that one single article generated $35 million for my little company in Virginia. All because we were willing to address a subject that other swimming pool companies were not willing to address. Yes, Cecilia?
Isn't it also that the minute you get them onto the site and they're actually reading what looks like a rather lengthy discussion, that the longer you have them engaged in reading it, the more likely it is that they're going to stay on your website and do further.
1,000%. In fact, we're going to talk more about that, Cecilia. The sunk cost fallacy is real when it comes to websites. And the more time they spend on your site, the more reason they're looking to actually do business with you because they've invested more time in you than they have in anyone else. 100%. 100%. Now,
I also noticed you had folded keywords and stuff inside there, so they can kind of
Yeah, and I'm going to show you a really good example of that here in a second, Lloyd. So I'm going to show you a regular price, another pricing. Let me show you a pricing page, and then I'm going to bring it to legal. I'm always going to show you examples outside of our space because it's interesting. The greatest marketers get inspiration not by paying attention to what everybody in their industry is doing. It's by paying attention to what people outside their industry are doing and then saying, how can I apply that principle? So this is an example of what is a great pricing page. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to have what's called a pricing page, but just this is what it should look like. Now, this is a company called Gillies & McKay. They sell sheds in Scotland. You get to the pricing page, and then, it is loaded. Immediately, you're hit with a video, and you've got a table of contents. All right? So this is pretty big. Then you've got another video that says, how much does a Gillies & McKay shed cost? And this is their CEO. And she says, first of all, we believe in transparent pricing. That's why you'll find all of our price lists with a shed load of helpful information on our website, easy to view and download, or even print off, if you will. Think of it as a wee keepsake for your shed life dreams. So already, you're like, I love this company. They're giving me more than anybody else. Same page now. They continue to talk about here's what's included in our pricing. Here's what you get for our pricing. They continue to talk about where their materials come from. They talk about their customer service. Same page, where your money goes, the materials that they buy for you. Same page, stuff out of their control. Same page, Q&A. That is a robust pricing page. That's what great content looks like. This is why they own that conversation for pricing. Now, finally, you can book a consultation. All right? So let's say somebody goes online right now and types in, what does no verdict, no fees mean? This is a pretty common question. Okay? No verdict, no fees. So if you go past the sponsored searches, first one you're going to see is Keith and Lorfing. Does anybody know Keith and Lorfing? They're not in this room. But here's where it's interesting. I want you to look at this and I want you to ask yourself, is this how we answer questions? Is this how we answer questions? So you click on this. First thing you see, no win, no fee explained. Is it right for you? Now, there's something really significant about this, is it right for you? Is it right for you is powerful because you can't tell from what they're saying if this is something that they're for or against. Too often, when it comes to the stuff that you write, I can tell exactly what your angle is. You want to state it in the way that they're thinking it. This is how they're thinking it. Is no win, no fee. Is this right for me? So that's the big headline. Now, once we get through this headline here, then all I'm going to show you is the rest of this pricing, this article of theirs. So they've got a video that you can watch, but what is a no-win, no-fee agreement? They take the time to explain that. Then they go on to say how no-win, no-fee works in Texas. So they explain it on a local level. Once they've explained it on a local level, the pros of a no-win, no-fee agreement. So they list advantages, and they actually talk about the disadvantages. Then they talk about who qualifies for a no-win, no-fee claim, factors that increase the chances of acceptance. Then they talk about the common myths and misconceptions about no-win, no-fee agreements. They mention specifically the myths, no-win, no-fee means no cost at all. Then they've got this great chart that says no-win, no-fee claim average amounts. This is really smart. They've got the type of case, and they've got the typical amount that you would get from each. Then they've got a no-win, no-fee examples. So they talk about different types of cases, and they give you all the examples. That article on their website is 2,300 words. And that's why it's number one, because it is freaking great. So Aaron, trying to be as realistic as possible, how well, like if that's a 10 in terms of the thoroughness of how well they answered something, when you consider your content on your website or online, how well or how high are you on that thoroughness scale if that's a 10?
Oh, a 2 or 3. We have the tagline.
Great. And you know the reason why most companies are like that, especially in this room, is because most of us have worked with an SEO company, and when we do that, we'll have some generic pages that don't have much soul, that don't go the extra mile, that don't answer all those additional questions. They're 800 words long, and we call it a day. I'm telling you, if you want to become the one that AI is recommending, and if you want to make sure that Google's recommending you, and if you want to make sure you're sending out the signals, that's the type of content you should be producing, Blake. You feel me, brother? All right? Any questions about what you just saw there? Now, Henry, when you compare your content and what you're producing on your site now to what you just saw, what would you rate yours on a scale of 1 to 10?
Overall, probably a 5.
Probably about a 5. Okay, all right, good. Now, let me just give you a sense for this. When it comes to written content on your website, when you address questions, generally speaking, it should be very robust, very thorough, oftentimes more than 1,500 words. Oftentimes more than 1,500 words. Or it's not going to show up in Google. AI is probably not going to be recommending it as much. It's just not going to have the same legs. By the way, I don't make up the rules. I don't celebrate the rules. I'm just reporting what the data shows us again and again. So I'm with that opinion on this. But if you think about it, if I went to that website, I am not going to be hungry when I'm done. I am saying I am satiated, I feel good, I feel full. Now, let's think about some of the money questions that exist in this industry. What are some of the questions that people ask about money in this industry? And I'm talking about, yes?
Is my attorney going to get more than me?
Okay, good. Lloyd, is my attorney going to get more than me? Now, just real quick, everybody, let's be honest for a second. Raise your hand if you answer that question on your website right now. All right, so we've got one in the room. Great, Lloyd. Great one. What's another one that people ask about money? Come on.
What percentage does my attorney show?
What percentage does my attorney get of the actual settlement? Raise your hand if you address that question well on your website right now. The answer is always well. I mean, the descriptor is always well, because otherwise you could say, well, we kind of. No. Do you do it well? Okay, Jay, you're 2 for 2, dog. All right, brother. Good job, Jay. All right, what's another question that we have? Stefan. What percentage of the judgment am I going to get? What percentage of the judgment am I going to get? Raise your hand if that is answered on your website right now. All right, what's another one that we have? Over here, yes, please.
What are the expenses going to cost to run the case?
Okay, so when it comes to the cases and all the expenses, how does all that work?
I'll take it a step further. Any hidden fees or expenses?
Okay, what hidden expenses or fees exist? Raise your hand if you talk about expenses, hidden fees, etc. on your website right now. Well, now, are we saying that people don't want to know these things, Dawn? Would you want to know these things? What we're saying is we are choosing to do what, Hugo?
As far as
We all just said, I said, do they ask you this? 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 And then we all just said, other than my homeboy Jay here, we don't talk about that. So we're essentially saying what?
we want to be informed, we want to know.
As consumers, we do, but as proprietors of these law firms, what are we saying? I am not going to tell you what you want to know, even though you want to know. And the justification, Patrick, and by the way, this is the part where some of you are already thinking, I don't like where this is going. And that's good. Right, Rob?
Absolutely.
It's good. So, Patrick, what's our justification?
It depends.
Ah,
Depends. The case depends.
case depends.
You don't know.
Lots of variables in there.
Exactly.
Could you, if you wanted to, explain those variables?
You could.
Every single one of those questions that we just said about cost, price, stuff, could you, if you wanted to, safely answer them? Absolutely. 100%. And it's one of the most fundamental questions people have. Now, Patrick, let's be honest. If you were vetting during that 80% that we talked about earlier, if you were vetting attorneys, you just had an injury, you're vetting attorneys, and let's say that you're actually vetting and not just calling like crazy. Because there's a certain amount of people that just call 3 people really quick, and there's another percentage that do legwork or have somebody in their family doing legwork for them, and they're going to make a recommendation. True? So if you were vetting 3, 4, 5 attorneys, and out of those 3, 4, 5, one of them talked openly about how fee structure works, what would be your impression of that particular attorney?
That they're honest and forthright with the monetary aspect of the case.
100%. So let's look at some of the most fundamental money questions that exist in this industry right now. By the way, if I was doing marketing here, every one of these would be an article and a video online. Number 1. And we're going to take a break after this. What does a personal injury lawyer actually cost in city? Exact fees explained. All right, now what I want you to do is we're going to do this together. These are all very common questions. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to say who's answered it. And if you've answered it well, I want you to raise your hand. And the reason why we're doing this, and this is not to like rub salt in a wound, I want you to see if this is the elite of the elite, and this is, because otherwise you want to be in a mastermind, then you know that this is a microcosm of the macro industry. So, first one, how does a personal injury lawyer, what does a personal injury lawyer actually cost in city or state? And this is just putting your city or state, exact fees explained. Raise your hand if you've addressed that well on your website in a thorough article that's more than 1,000 words. Okay, 0, okay. How much of my settlement will my lawyer take in city, state? Raise your hand if you've done that well. Average settlement amounts for car accidents in city, state, how much goes to the lawyer? Hidden costs of hiring a personal injury attorney in city, state, what nobody tells you? Are there upfront costs for personal injury lawyers in your city? Contingency fees explain how injury attorneys in city, state actually get paid. Is hiring a top personal injury attorney worth the cost in such and such state? Case studies and examples. You see where this is headed. Now, Blake, how much of your website has addressed these 15?
0. Yeah.
Well, I mean, considering, though, that you earlier were world class, I'm confused, Blake.
All about perspective.
Perspective. Now, Blake, let's be realistic. Is there anything on here from an article or video perspective that you couldn't actually answer if you wanted to? Other than sheer laziness, what would be the reason for you saying, I'm not going to talk about this? There isn't one. Carl, is there anything here you can't address?
Address it all, but have not.
Because how many times have you addressed these things in person before?
Oh, they ask these questions in person.
All the time, right? The way that I have listed this out for you, I have literally made the titles for you. Now, by the way, this is one of the big 5. I'm going to do this 4 more times. I'm going to show you 75 titles just like this. And as Rob said, 1 or 2 of you in this room is going to go back and you're going to crush these. And then suddenly you're going to find, my goodness, I am dominating when it comes to the conversations that everybody wants to have, but my competitors aren't having. And then you're going to start to hear people say to you, Neil, you know what, you were the only one that was willing to address that. I vetted 5 other attorneys. You were the only one, and that's why I'm calling you. And I can tell you that because I've had thousands of people that have applied these principles tell me that very same thing in their industry. Okay, so going back to pools, used to be, Stephen, that you would meet with Marcus, talk about a fiberglass pool. You'd like a fiberglass pool, but then you'd meet with Jimmy, who sells concrete pools, And immediately, what's he say about Marcus's fiberglass pools? No good. And he would tell you about all the problems with a fiberglass pool. And then what you would do is you would go and you would research, hey, is it true that fiberglass pools are ugly? Do fiberglass pools pop out of the ground? Does a fiberglass pool look like a bathtub? See, all these things are problems, questions, worries, fears. When someone is serious about buying something or putting their trust in something, making a buying decision, they want to know, how could this go wrong? And so we openly talked about the problems with fiberglass pools. We said fiberglass pools aren't for everybody. Can't get them wider than 16 feet, can't get them longer than 40 feet, can't get them deeper than 8 feet. You cannot customize them any way you want. But if you're looking for a low-maintenance pool that's going to last you a lifetime, that's less than 16 by 40 and less than 8 feet deep, well, then it might be a great choice for you. And so what was the result of this right here? Well, here's what happened. Here's a list of the number one phrases that generated the most sales appointments over the next couple years. The number one with 56 sales appointments was river pools and spas, but I don't count that one because that's our company name. So the number one phrase that generated the most sales appointments in the next couple years was fiberglass pools problems. How is it possible that talking about the problems with our stuff could, in this case, generate what ended up being a couple $1 million in sales? How's it possible? That's it, Carl. Once again, the greatest way in life to resolve a concern is to address it up front. And so this just shows, and a lot of, what's interesting is most fiberglass pool companies are never going to talk about this. We're going to say, absolutely, we can talk about this. Let me give you another example. Here's a metal roofing manufacturer. Turns out that when, just another one of, I've had so many different clients, but this is just an example of one. When you're thinking about a metal roof, one of the major questions you have is, what are the problems with a metal roof? And so as a manufacturer, they produced this video, the 7 common problems with a metal roof, 500,000 views. And so 500,000 views from people that either have a problem with a metal roof or want to buy a metal roof and want to know about the problems. And so most manufacturers won't talk about this because they're afraid to lean into what the buyer wants to know. The smart ones lean into what the buyers want to know. So let's look at the problems-focused content that we see in legal. Now, you all have done these to a degree at a decent level. I've seen some of you, you've got these like little like checklists or guides that you'll send out to folks. Some of you have done these on a decent video level. 7 mistakes that will ruin your personal injury case, denied injury claims in such and such state, why it happens and what you can do, why insurance companies delay accident claims in such and such state, how to fight back, injured by an uninsured driver in such and such state, here's exactly what to do, 5 signs your injury attorney isn't working hard enough for you, delayed medical treatment after an accident in your state, does it hurt your claim, biggest reasons why personal injury cases fail in your state and how to avoid them, how social media posts can damage your personal injury case. So all these are potential things that could go wrong. These are the type of things that you want to address. Okay? You're doing a decent job. We're much better here than we were with the cost questions. As a whole, with the cost questions, I would say across the board we're an F, but here we're probably more like a C, somewhere thereabouts for those that are producing content. Okay, now let's look at comparisons. People love to compare. Yes, Rob.
On the problems questions, so none of the questions that you listed are really talk about problems with the law firm. Do you think that needs to be addressed?
Absolutely. Anything that is a fear like they could have with the law firm that's like, what happens if, is it true that? Can you think of one, by the way? Is there one that you have on your mind that you're wondering about?
I mean, some people I'm sure think, so law firms can be big or small. So
Yeah.
for instance, if the law firm's too big, am I really going to get the attention I need? Or if you're too small, do you have the ability to really handle my case?
Yeah, and that actually could be a versus one as well. That could be a large versus small personal injury firms. Which is the right choice for me? And so that would be the way that we would title that article or that video. And notice, though, that I'm not saying which one is right, because the whole idea is that once they get into the context of the content itself, then they're able to self-select, which is what everybody wants to do. one thing you got to be careful about with some of your stuff is you don't want to just be so biased that it's like that I can already tell from the title of your article or your video exactly where you stand. Unless, not to distract us, unless I'm trying to do something that is like almost like an attack piece, and I'll show you those later.
One other question.
Yes.
So with all of the questions that we're addressing, whether it's in any of the 5, are you also selling in your answering the questions? So are you showing benefits of how you're addressing their questions, or
Yeah.
is it just really more pure education?
Yes, great question. Now, as a standard that we want to have for all of our content, there's, and I'll show you one later, there's a standard essentially opening that we do where we make it clear who we are and the problems we solve. And so it should be obvious from the very beginning. So in other words, if I go back to one of these and I said, yeah, I might say in an article or a video, have you been in an accident and you're finding that your insurance company is delaying your accident claims? Are you asking yourself, well, how can I fight back? Well, here at Rob Levine Law Firm, this is one of the questions that we hear all the time. And it's actually not uncommon to see delays from insurance companies. And so what we're going to do in this video or this article today is we're going to talk about all the factors that cause these delays, which ones are legit, which ones are not, and then we're going to talk about what you can do about it. And by the end, hopefully you're going to have a very good sense as to how you can fight back when your insurance company is delaying your accident claim. So that would be the beginning, and it makes it very clear, hey, this is a problem that we solve, generally speaking, but it's not overly salesy. And then at the end, yes, you're going to have your traditional call to action or whatever that might be, where you might say, now listen, if you've been watching this video, let's say they're outside of your area. If you're outside of our area, we're not necessarily going to be able to help you, but hopefully this has been educational for you. But if you are in Connecticut or wherever that place is, and you do want to fight back, we would love to help you further with this, struggle that you're having. All right.
You also want to make it like a very natural response too, because sometimes words.
It should be a very natural response, and with AI, a lot of people are sounding like AI,
Yeah.
and so and I'm going to try to show you some later that you might be able to do to help with that. One of the requirements that we have, because how it works is our clients send us their content and we approve it or we give it a thumbs down. We always want one story from the firm or from the company in the content, Rob. So literally, you should look for examples of, we had a situation where, like, we want those, because if somebody reads our stuff, it should not been able to have been written by anybody else in the world other than us. If anybody else could publish that immediately on their website, it means it wasn't personal enough to our firm, our company. So don't be so generic with your answers that it's not clear who you are, you share no stories about your firm, there's nothing about you. That would be problematic. We want to be helpful, we don't want to be salesy, but it's got to be clear this is a problem we solve. Yes, Jay?
Do you think it's better to have it written or video or a combination of both?
In a perfect world, we're doing both, because as Google search goes down, YouTube search value increases, and we want to make sure we do well with both. But AI is more pulling their recommendations and their answers off of text right now, and you still have a chance to rank in Google search as well. So it's just one of those things now. You can, like, literally, any one of you all in one day could sit down and answer all these questions with a videographer, and this is easy money. This is so amazes me. Like, some of you have done decent with article content. Most of us in this room have done poorly with video content. No one in this room has more than 2,000 subscribers on their YouTube page that I'm aware of. And I looked at every single one of your YouTube pages. And so this is one of those things where, Stephen, you're smart enough to be able to sit down. You could, in 5 to 10 minutes, answer each one of these. Each one's its own video. And you start to dominate conversations. in your local area, and then someone can take those videos, a content writer, and I'll show you this later, and turn that into a really solid article, especially with AI, but you have your personal touches to it, and now you're cooking with gas, and once a week you meet with your content person for a couple hours, and you're doing way more content than anybody in your space, and you're absolutely crushing it. And you're spending way less on advertising because now you're getting much more in terms of inbound. Yes, Lucy?
Do you have to use a videographer, or do you think we could create this like on a cell phone?
Do you have to use a videographer? No, you don't have to. You do have to have good audio.
Right.
And so I would use a separate mic, if you will. But I've seen people that are attorneys that have done extraordinary things building brands on TikTok, and literally they're just sitting in their freaking car with a cell phone after a case. And so that's now it's starting to become much more common. One of the issues that we have within the legal space is we're trying to be so proper with our brand imaging that it kills us from actually producing stuff. Whereas there's a reason why those that are just quick and nimble are just you're like running circles around everybody else. It's a good question, Lucy. All right. Yes, please.
I had a comment because I know that there are a lot of people who are like, oh, good, I can just knock this all out with video. But I can tell you as somebody who does a lot of time, looking for stuff on the web, I get so irritated if it's not written out because I can speed read. And I want that information like that. But if I have to sit and listen to somebody describe it, I click off.
Yeah, and it's all a matter of we want to meet the audience where they are. There's a certain percentage of your people that want articles, a percentage that want video, certain percentage that want audio. The idea is that we're doing as many of those as we can, but I would make text and video your two primary, at least at first. Okay, so comparisons. Getting back to this, there's a lot of comparison-based questions. You versus your competitor, your method versus their method. But let me give you an example from the pool world, and then we'll come back to our space. One of the questions that I used to get asked all the time was, Marcus, be honest, tell me what's the difference between a fiberglass pool versus a concrete pool versus a vinyl liner pool, and which one's better? And for some reason, no pool guys wanted to answer this question. Literally, Fiberglass Pool Company was like, our biggest competitor is concrete. So this is what we're going to do. We're not even going to talk about concrete pools on our website, and if we don't talk about concrete pools, well, then nobody will know they exist, which is so stupid, yet this is the logic that these are the games that we play with ourselves, right? And so we openly talked about fiberglass versus vinyl versus concrete. But look how we talked about it. Is there an unbiased comparison of fiberglass, vinyl, and concrete pools on the internet? Final sentence. The approach is simple. I list the advantages and disadvantages of fiberglass, vinyl, and concrete pools, and then back off so you can form your own opinion. When we have a tendency in this room to be overtly biased. So for example, and I'm going to say this, and it's probably not going to make sense to a lot of you, but eventually it might. Most of you say, here's why you should use us. Whereas what the reader actually needs to hear is, are we the right fit for you? Find out here. Now, which one are you more drawn to, Craig?
The latter.
Why?
Because it's customer-centric, and it's not about me telling you how great.
That's correct, but what percentage of us say, here's why you should do business with us? Here's why you should choose our law firm.
Probably
100% of us. In fact, we love that one on our homepage. Y'all are you love that section of your homepage. Okay? All right? And so, because we were willing to do that, today if you go online and you compare any type of in-ground pool, we own that conversation. We weren't afraid to talk about the obvious. Now, here's some examples of some comparison base in this space. Big versus small personal injury firms in city-state, which is better? Notice how it's not telling you which one's better. Car accident versus truck accident claims, what's the difference? Hiring a personal injury versus self-representation. Settlement versus trial. Personal injury versus general practice. Comparing injury settlements, car versus motor accident payouts. There's a ton of great comparison content that you could do. And there's a lot of people that are searching these things. You can really own conversations in your space if you're going to lean into these. As a whole, we don't lean into these very well. We can do much, much better. We do, it's not a FF, but this is like a D- in the room. It's about a D- in the room. Okay? Anybody have any questions about this one here? All right, so far I've shown you 45 pieces of content. This room is not doing, there's not a single person in this room that has produced more than 5 of the 45. And so if you take these seriously and really start to go at it, and I'm going to show you like what going at it means in terms of what your marketing team can and should look like, then you're going to start to become that most known and trusted brand. Okay, final one of the big 5. We talked about cost, we talked about products, we talked about comparisons. I'm going to combine the last 2, reviews and best. Reviews and best. Now, has anybody here ever been asked before, we like you, we think we want to do business with your firm, but if we don't do business with your firm, is there anybody else that you might recommend? You ever heard that before? Now, Monty, what do most people say as a response to that?
You mean from us?
Yeah, if somebody says to you, Monty, we like you, we think we want to use Kane and Associates, but if we don't, is there anybody else you might recommend? How do most companies, maybe not you, but how do most companies answer that question?
We've had that happen. We just tell them here's some other good firms.
All right, good. Yeah, you actually tell them. Have you ever told them online before?
No.
That'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one night I was in Richmond, Virginia, and this was when I was still a pool guy. And this couple says to me after 2.5 hours, Marcus, we like you. We think we want to get this pool from you, but if we don't get this pool from you, is there anybody else you might recommend? And I thought, well, they asked the question, which means what, Adam?
We'll give them an answer.
I'm going to answer it. So the frustrating thing is because they were still researching, I didn't close the deal that night, but I did have a long drive home. I was pretty frustrated because I didn't close the deal, and so I said, well, they asked, I'm going to answer. So I went back, and I wrote this article right here. Who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia? Review/ratings. And I came up with a list of 5 of the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia. Now, when I did this, my 2 business partners freaked out a little bit. But I said, first off, if they're reading this, where are they? They're on my site. And I always have a choice, and so do you. They can learn it from me, or they can learn it from someone else. Question is, who do we choose, right, Jordan? And so, I don't know about you, but I'm like, I want to control every conversation, at least be a part of it as much as I can. And so, what's interesting about this is, some of you might say, well, did you put yourself on the list? The answer is no. I did not put myself on the list. Because at the time, it would have come across as self-serving. I have actually now, with the Endless Customers updated book, today, and by the way, I've done this with hundreds of companies around the world, just like this. Hundreds and hundreds. Today, I can tell you that I would actually put myself on the list. In a non-biased way, but I would put myself on the list. Does anybody know why?
Because you are one of the top 5 pool builders.
We were before, Dawn, but we weren't on the list. What the difference is, now, if you go to AI and you say, who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia, AI is using whose content to show the list? Mine. And so I don't want you to not see, whereas before you were on my site, but now, because of zero-click, you might only get that answer. And so I need to dictate what the market understands to be the best list in Richmond in any of my other markets. Now, so what's the result of this? Well, of course, if you go online, you search best pool builders, Richmond, Virginia, we're one of the first you're going to see. But here's what's wild. Let's say you went online, you typed reviews, Playmore Pools, Richmond, Virginia. Now, Playmore is my biggest competitor in Richmond. All right? So you go online, you type reviews, Playmore Pools, Richmond, Virginia. After you get to Yelp, the first one you're going to see is our website. And this is why today, if you're researching my competitors online, oftentimes you're going to learn about them from who? From me. I literally had a lady come to me some years back. She said, the craziest thing, Marcus, happened. I was this close to signing a contract with Playmore Pools. But before I signed that contract, I decided to go online and research their company. And as I was researching their company, I stumbled across this article that you guys had written. I said, my goodness, these guys are so honest. I should probably call them too. And of course, you know what happened, don't you? Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you the story. Right, Carl? So that article that year, that article generated over $250,000 in sales. And a lot of people would say, yes, but aren't you afraid you've now introduced them to the competition? To which we would say, what, Carl? That's right. They're not dumb. They're going to get their dang answer. How long does it take them to get it? Not long. Seconds on a slow day. And so the moment we let go of this idea that we actually control things and say, listen, they're going to get their answers. Consumer ignorance is no longer a viable sales and marketing strategy. So I want to make sure they get it from me. Now, you might say, well, what did you say about the competition? I know your legalese minds are just going off here. Here's what we said about Playmore. Having been around for years, Playmore Pools is located in the Mechanicsville area. They specialize in vinyl liner and ground pools. The company also installs fiberglass pools and has a heavy emphasis on automatic pool cover installations. That information came from where? Their website. Do you think they're going to say, I can't believe you said what we said about ourselves? When I've gone to events, because you might say, well, what do they say to you? I will go to events, and the Playmores of the world will come up to me, and they will say, Marcus, I don't know why you put us on that list, but thank you. And I'm thinking, no, thank you. Because they don't realize I'm riding their coattails. As people are searching for them, now I am the one that they're going to be learning from. This is critical for AI. This is critical for regular Google search. Every single one of you could do this right now in every major city that you're a part of or town. You could do this. And you should do it. And it'll produce fruit. Earlier, Rob said that 2% from Tony, do this. This is the one that's so interesting to me. It's so fruitful, yet we're just so reticent to do this, and it's a slam dunk. There's no reason not to do it. Yes, Stephen.
So you said today you would put yourself on the list.
Yeah.
There's got to be some psychology to where you're
Correct.
putting yourself on the list.
So I wouldn't rank it, and here's what I would say. One of the questions we get here all the time at, what's the name of your firm? Ms. Rayno Law Firm, is who are the best personal injury attorneys where?
Birmingham, Alabama.
In Birmingham, Alabama. And the reality is, as you might imagine, it's a very subjective thing to come up with such a list. But we feel like you deserve that as someone that has experienced potentially a personal injury. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to give you a list of the top 7 personal injury attorneys in the Birmingham, Alabama area. Now, the way we have defined this list or come up with this list is we've used 5 different factors. Those 5 factors are Google reviews is 1, ... So you mentioned the 5, and then say, and now what you're going to find too is this is not ranked in order. These are just 7 that we can recommend to you based on these 5 factors. You will notice here that we are also listed, although that might sound self-serving, based on the variables and the factors we used, that did put us in that list of top 7. And so we hope you can appreciate the context by which this was done. So you notice how I'm saying it, right? I'm saying it in such a way, I'm saying the obvious. Yes, we created this list, but it's based on these factors. Here's the factors that we've used.
Are you at the top of the list? The middle.
I would probably just make it unranked, and I would put myself in there.
I know,
That's right.
I was thinking people would just see the list and think,
I would not personally put myself at the top. I'd put myself in the middle. All right, question. Which one of you is actually willing to do that, what I just showed you? It'll work. It'll work. Now, make sure that you got some meat on that bone. All right, I would make this much longer today than I did then. All right, so put some meat on that bone. That's the best of. Yes, Aaron.
Did you use the same strategy for like similar things that people might search? So in this example, maybe like fireplace builders in, like outdoor fireplace builders in Virginia, or backyard landscapers in Virginia, like a similar area that might
Yeah, it's a really smart question, Aaron. Everybody hear that question from Aaron? Like, you can do best of lists, and it's great because if there are companies that you get referrals off of or that potentially could work with you in some degree, I would absolutely create lists, put them in said lists, and now you continue to dominate the conversation in your market, and it builds your network, and there's, it's just a lot of benefits to it. It's really smart, Aaron.
If you're doing something like best chiropractors, best physical therapists after a car crash.
Yeah, that's a really smart one to do.
Would you have to reach out to them?
No, not at all. The only thing you can't do is you can't put their mark on your website, right? That's the only thing that you can't do. And so, and most of them are going to be like, hey, I really, really appreciate that. They're going to be impressed. It's a very fast way for you to make inroads and get a lot more referrals.
Except what are you going to do the first time they propose that doctor? And they say, well, you're on Mr. Murray's website, he's promoting you as one of the best chiropractors. What kind of relationship do you have?
That they gain.
Why
Why wouldn't I recommend the best? I'm going to recommend the best to my family.
I'm telling you right now how far they're going to stick it up there.
Well, you have the choice, but I will tell you.
Lawyer sends it to the Cairo says this, Cairo's not getting paid unless he gets a verdict in this case. All it goes to.
Yeah, I understand that. We try cases, but the best approach is hit it straight on, and then juries know that doctors, or lawyers refer to doctors, and they get it, they understand it. When it comes out in testimony, it hasn't seemed to hurt me. And whether face it, but when we hide it, it destroys us. Yeah, and Jay, whether you call them the best or not, that's still always the cross. That's why you know it so well. They don't ask them that anyway.
Well, and I think also you're able to say, well, we had a system by which we came up with a list. They were in the top 7 of that system that we used. And so it's verifiable. It wasn't a matter of, we didn't say they were the best. Based on the system, they were in the top in our area. And we also have mentioned all these other companies. So, listen, all this, you're gonna handle it personally, but I can tell you, if you want to become the most known and trusted brand, you can't do what everybody else is doing and expect to get different results. Because we did stuff like you're seeing, this is how we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. I mean, yes, Ken.
Do you want to go for the ones that you would say are the best quality, or are you looking to get people to beat search?
Yeah. Usually that ends up being the same, Ken. I chose the ones who I was losing the most to. That's who I chose. All right. So let's look at some review-focused content. How to find honest reviews for personal injury attorneys in location. Most reviewed personal injury lawyers in location and why it matters. What real clients say about top personal injury attorneys and location. Understanding lawyer reviews, what to look for before hiring an injury attorney. By the way, I know you've heard this a million times, but at this point, you've got to be so obsessed with getting Google reviews from your clients. And not just from your clients. You can get a Google review from literally anybody you work with. So any vendor you work with. But it affects where you show up, and if you show up on the map, which is so important to all of us for those near me searches. It is a part of the AI recommendation engine at this point. The best companies today have a very intentional program where they are getting reviews on every single client. If you have had 1,000 clients and you don't have 750 reviews, something's wrong. Fix the system. And many of you have had a lot more than 1,000 clients. Raise your hand if you've got a very specific program built to get more reviews. Okay, I can't stress this enough. I don't have time on it today, but that's just one of those we've got to do well. So you're going to have this list, and then one more list for you, which is the best list. And this one I love. This list is slay. It is so good. All right, who are the best personal injury attorneys? State, top rankings, reviews, top 5 personal injury law firms for car accidents. So you can get specific for every one of you. So each one of these services that you offer, and most of you have like 7 or 8 different types of cases you take. So you do a separate one for each one of those. Best law firms for maximizing your injury settlement. Top-rated personal injury attorneys for truck accident claims. By the way, when you do this and you mention other law firms, people are not going to know how to handle it. They will have no clue. Yes, ma'am, please.
For the question of when you're adding other law firms, are you recommending to include the hyperlink?
Oh, great question. Do you include a hyperlink? Sure. If you do, I would only make it a no follow, which basically means you're not sending them your search engine juices. You're not sending them juju. I don't typically ever link, though, to my competitors. I figure they can actually do that with a voice search in a second anyway, so I don't do that. But if it was a company that I was like you talked about, Aaron, that's in the similar industry and they're not a direct competitor, I would direct link to them. Everybody got it? Okay? These are awesome. Golly day, I hope somebody does this. You will thank me later.
Have you done law firms before, and have any of them gone and actually done this?
You know what? I am so glad to be asked that question. I have had very little, generally, most of my clients come from where I speak. This is the first time that I can recall speaking to a group of attorneys. There's something really funny, and I'm going to say this with the risk of offending people. There is something funny about what I have seen with the attorneys that have happened to be in my audience before. Most come from a place of, that won't work for us. This is the first time that I've had a group of attorneys for 3 hours, and I suspect somebody in here will make serious waves with it. But no, I don't know of a world-class case study within legal yet for they ask you answer. The other reason is, generally what you find, a law firm will say, I can't get my attorneys to take the time to be a subject matter expert because they would rather spend their time on billable hours, and so I can't get their help, which means you have a leadership buy-in problem, and there's a lack of vision within that firm. But I see that as well, because again, I've had attorneys in my audience, but I've never spoke to a group of attorneys or at an attorney conference, and I've done 1,000 events. I've never done an attorney event.
On the other industries that have done this, what have they noticed in the percentage of increase in their acquired new clients or?
Well, Jay, just based on, because we've had a lot of financial advisors do this, which is, I would say, a somewhat similar field, right? But generally speaking, if somebody does this at the rates that I'm going to show you later, typically within 18 months, they're unrecognizable, and the lead flow is shocking versus what they were. Like their business will never be the same in 18 months. But that's another reason why a lot of companies don't do this, is because it doesn't just work in a day. Although some of these things do work in a day, this doesn't just, all of a sudden you've got this huge harvest. Please.
Would the majority of the firms that you're recommending be the same or similar on all the articles?
Yeah, probably, Lucy. And again, I'm just going to try to be as honest as possible on the list. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm literally just going to be straight up honest. Yeah, my man.
What about your content writers? Are you keeping that in-house, or is that?
100%. I am going to talk about that, Stefan. All right, that's a big part of this. So one thing that I noticed, okay, so let's say that's the big 5. And that's for all of our articles, that's for our videos. There's other pieces of content, but I just gave you 75 that if you actually do this and you take it seriously, you're going to start to become the known and trusted brand in your market big time, because pretty much everything we talked about, because of how it works with legal, you can make it very geo-targeted like I showed you. Actually, it makes it quite nice because we're not competing with each other in this room. We are competing against those that are in our direct market. One of the mistakes that I see is many of you have what would be considered a blog, but I want you to shift your mind towards more of a learning center. All right? Now, what I mean by this is, if you go to the River Pools website and you scroll down just a little bit, suddenly you're like, wow, view our extensive learning center. 250 videos, 700 articles, 31 million views, and then we have a few pieces of the content. So that's what you see when you come to our homepage. I want them to go to this section of the site where they can really start to get their learn on big time, okay? And so a lot of you just have what would be called, you've got resources and then you've got just a blog, but a learning center. Now within your learning center though, you've got a video library, you've got your case study section, you've got maybe some interactive tools, and I'm going to talk about those in a bit. So that's what falls within your learning center. And so I want you to just consider stepping it up from that. Okay? Now, when you get to the Learning Center at River Pools, then you'll see that we've got a search bar, and whatever you search, you're going to find content that we have produced about it. We list the major questions that you have, and then we've got a bunch of content underneath that. So that's the Learning Center at River Pools. We haven't done that very well. There was one company I liked, Adam Smallow. Who's that? Where's that? Yeah. So Adam, I thought you did a pretty good job with this of everybody in this room. I thought you, the way that you were listing out the answers to your questions, overall it was more organized. It was generally, it was better done. So good job on that. But as a whole, we're not creating a true powerhouse learning center, and that's what you want to do. That's where you're going to want to be. Okay, so now let's continue to talk about video. You know, this year, over 82% of all the time we consume online in the world is going to be video-based. Video-based. So even though Cecilia wants to read it, that's only 18% of the market. Yes?
And I should change that. It's when I initially get onto somebody's
Smart.
website.
As you go, you watch more video.
I want to learn a little bit about where to go, stuff like that. I want it written out because I don't want to listen to something.
Yeah.
When I'm into the topic, then I want to watch it.
Really, really good point. That's funny how that works. And so, yes, oftentimes the way that we consume media will change based on where we are in the buying cycle. So that's a really, really great point. So it is time, especially this room here, I thought we're doing okay with text. We can do a lot better, but man, we are not, from a video perspective, where we need to be as a group. And what I really want you to start to think like is, I need to be more like a media company within my firm. I'm a media company that happens to be a personal injury attorney. I am a media company that happens to speak and happens to have these other companies, but I'm a media company. I'm a media brand. And everybody in here needs to start to think that way. I am a media company. And so I'm going to show you, other than what we talked about already today with the Big Five, I'm going to show you the types of videos that have some of the greatest impact on just the general sales process, on the sales process. Now, these are generic, and so we're going to have to apply them to legal, but hopefully you'll be able to catch that vision. They're not hard to produce. You just got to do it. Just got to do it. We've tested each one of these. They work very, very well. Also, generally speaking, the video that doesn't work very well is the About Us video. But yet, that's the one video that most people in this room have invested in.
The what video?
The About Us video. It just generally, for the most part, it doesn't move the sales needle, the client needle. I'm going to show you some things that do move the client needle more than anything else. Number one is what we call the 80% video. So let's assume that you're meeting with a client for the first time and they've just had an accident. Aaron, assuming it's the same type of accident, let's say they've had a motorcycle accident, what percentage of the questions that they're going to ask you as the attorney are essentially the same questions that you hear every time? What percentage?
It's 80%.
Yeah, it's probably about 80. Could be 75, could be 90, but let's just call it 80%. So here's what you want to do. For each type of service you offer, type of case that you run, and I know, again, most of you are like 7 or 8 that you run, you want to create one 80% video. The 80% video takes the top 7 to 10 questions that are most repeated, and you want to morph those into one video, and then you send that video to the client as soon as communication starts. Okay? So, for example, let's say we were doing a motorcycle accident. What would be, Aaron, one of those questions that you know they're going to ask you pretty much every single time?
How am I going to get all my medical bills paid?
How am I going to get all my medical bills paid? So that is one of the fundamental questions that is going to be in this video. Now, this video is not short. This video could easily be 10, 12, 15 minutes. And so what we're trying to do is get a jump on everybody else. We're trying to move them quickly through that buyer's journey with a very personal element to us. So we talked about this. I was talking about this with Carl earlier. Like, for example, if you're following the 5-minute rule with your leads, and you call that lead immediately, and you set an appointment, even if you set it or don't set it, if you're emailing them that second a video that is explaining these 80% most repeated questions about their particular situation, now you've got a serious leg up on the competition. The thing about video is this, and this is the mistake that I think we tend to make. If you ever meet with a client in person and shake their hand, and that's the first time they're hearing your voice, and that's the first time they're seeing your face, you have failed the client. They should already know your voice, Carl. They should already know your face. They should already feel like they've learned from you. They should already feel like they've got a relationship of trust with you. And if not you, whichever attorney they are speaking with. That should be the case, in my opinion, 100% of the time. I tell all my salespeople with my pool company or any other organization that I work with, my agency, it's all the same thing. If you are walking up that driveway and they don't recognize you, turn around. Because we're going to invite this person in our home. They better recognize. I owe that to them. Makes them feel safer, makes the trust level go up, and it sure as heck increases closing rates. No reason in the world not to do it. Okay? And so this is one of those things where the 80% video is very powerful. Like I said, one for each type of case service that you offer. Everybody got that? It's totally simple. Anybody have that already? Probably not, right? Okay. So do that one. Very simple. Integrate it into the mix, into the communication mix immediately with the potential client.
So if your goal is to sign the client in the first call, right? So are you sending the video after to reinforce the
Great.
decision?
So Rob, do you have it set up that somebody schedules the call and then there's a phone conversation with an attorney? Do you just make the call and that's the close right there as soon as the lead comes in? What is your system?
Well, first of all, we don't let attorneys be involved in the intake process. My perspective is that attorneys look for problems
Okay.
and solutions.
Okay.
So their intake team is 50 people.
Okay.
Call, if it's an inbound call, it goes into intake. The person who answers that call
Yep.
is the person who signs start to finish.
Yes. Yeah. So in this case, depending on, so let's say they've talked to them on that first one. If they've talked to them on that first call and they've closed it, I probably still send it as soon as the call is done as part of the customer experience. If I've talked to them and I haven't closed it, I send it as part of the customer experience to increase the likelihood that they get more of a connection with us. Either way, I'm probably sending it pretty much every single time. I'm just changing maybe the verbiage I'm using with it in terms of the value for them is if they're a customer or not.
So do two videos. One, thanks for trusting us, and here's the information, or we're looking forward to.
Yeah, and the information is the same, but maybe the opening is different. Okay?
And that should be in a larger firm where myself and some of the attorneys here would never talk to a client. So that should still be recorded by the owner.
I prefer it that way, and I'm going to give you some other ideas later, but I do. In a perfect world, they are hearing from someone like the owner, but at some point they should get a video from the attorney they're going to work with before they shake their hand. I believe if they don't, they failed the client. But that is my personal opinion. I know sometimes it might sound unreasonable, but the way technology is today, the ability to send a video on the fly fast is crazy, crazy easy. Okay?
I have a question. Do you know the number of clients in your field who see the
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't watch much of the video, and there's a lot of people that watch the video 3 times, right? It's just, everybody's going to be a little bit different in this regard. Now, part of it, Hugo, is the phraseology that you use. So if I'm talking to you, Mr. Granados, so say, hey, Mr. Granados, I'm so glad we got a chance to talk today. I know you said you weren't ready to move forward yet with who you're going to decide to be your attorney. I want to send you a video that is going to address some of the fundamental fears that you have, that most people have, and I want you to hear from one of our attorneys so that you're no longer worried about these things. Specifically, I'm going to address, and then I'm going to mention one, I'm going to mention another, I'm going to mention another, right? Some of those major fears. And by you watching this, now whether you end up going with us or someone else, Mr. Granados, at least you won't make some of those classic mistakes that we see that people have experienced a personal injury. Would you take the time and review that today? Person's going to say yes and thank you. You see what I mean? Yeah, and then we're probably going to text and email the video. If we had if we were able to talk to them, we might, based on what they said, make a choice, right? Based on preference. All right, that's the 80% video. Number 2, bio videos. So we all say it's our people that make us different, it's our people that make us special, yet we sometimes struggle to show our people. Now, most of you do an okay job on your website of showing the entire firm, and you might have like some quick description about the person. But what I want to push you to do that pretty much nobody in here has done is improve your email signatures. This is going to sound like it's trite, but it actually is very effective. So this is a sample email signature. Any company I work with, whoever is customer facing ends up having an email signature that looks something like this. Now, most of you have an email signature where you've got your contact information and you might have an image. If you don't have an image, shame on you. That's the bare minimum, right? But what I'm going to suggest that you have in your email signature is also a bio video. Now, your bio video this is where it makes it very easy for them to meet the attorney they're going to work with or whomever they're talking to on the phone. But this basically introduces the person, tells them a little about themselves professionally, a little bit about themselves personally. So everybody that's customer facing on your staff, I think, should have this type of video in their email signature. So if all you have is this with no image, I'm going to give you an F on your signature. If you have this plus this, I'll give you a C. If you have this plus this, I'm going to give you an A. Raise your hand if you have some type of bio video in your email signature right now. Easy to do. One of the easiest tools to use is Y-Stamp for this. Costs almost nothing. Every single one of your attorneys should have this because here's what we find. This video gets 25 to 30 views a month on average from a typical salesperson. So if somebody in your firm is sending it out, whoever it is, they're going to get multiple views from it. These are multiple people that are hearing the voice, seeing their face, learning from them, and building the trust. Use technology to humanize your brand better. Don't just accept a simple About Us page on your website and call it a day. This is simple to do. Neil, could you do this? It's a no-brainer, right? It doesn't, costs almost nothing to do. It's very inexpensive, just a few minutes of time.
If you're getting the clicks, I guess, to YouTube, and also affects the background search because your clients or whoever's opening the video.
There you go, Stephen. It's all signals, back to AI, signals, signals, signals. Okay, so number 3, service product pages. Real quick, for each one of your service pages, in other words, you got car accidents as one, truck accidents as whatever it is, you should have one video, but on that video, you should talk about who that service is for and who it's not for. This is a mistake that we see a lot of people making. If they have a video, they talk about who needs it. What is important is that you explain who it's for and who it's not for. Just like earlier, Cecilia, you mentioned that sometimes you get leads that are just like, I had an IV and now I'm sore. So like, this is the type of thing where you want to talk about what the scope might look like. So that's your service product pages. Each one of you should have a separate, different video on each one of those types of cases that you do. Got it? All right. Then we've got landing pages. A landing page on your website, what we're going to call is any page that has a form that they can fill out. The problem is, when there's a form they can fill out, there's 4 specific fears that people have when they're filling out forms. Do you know what those fears are? Anybody want to guess? Yeah, are you going to call me to death? Are you going to email me to death? What are you going to do with my information? And finally, number 4 is, so if I fill out this form, what is this process going to look like? So here's what you want to do. If you have a page on your site with a form, put a video next to it. We've tested this. It's crazy how it works. The video needs a title. The title should say, see exactly what will happen if you fill out this form. Because that's what they're thinking. And then, when you do the video, you literally just say something like this. So you're sitting there right now, and you're saying to yourself, should I fill out this form? Are they going to call me or email me to death? What are they going to do with my information? What's this process going to look like? Relax. I'm going to explain that to you right now. And then you explain what your process is, whatever that is. Now, here's what's wild. When you do that, oddly enough, it increases conversions on average by 80% on that page. You have no idea how many people don't fill out a form because they have some weird fear that you haven't identified and you haven't addressed. By you mentioning those fears, now all of a sudden the conversion rates go up. But you notice I mentioned the video has to have a title, and the title should be what? See what will happen if you fill out this form. Now, Lucy, a mistake that I see a lot of us make on our websites is a lot of you have videos on your websites and they don't have any title, and I have no idea what the video is about. If you show a video, make a very clear title that hooks me in and makes me want to watch it. But we're prolific with this problem in the room. We tend not to we just throw up a video and you think they're going to watch the video. They're not going to probably watch it unless they know why they should watch it. Feel me here?
Where are they coming from when they, like your landing page, you see their company, where are they clicking on before they get to your landing page?
Well,
Social, Facebook?
yeah, but yeah, this is any time, Adam, if you're sending them to your site from a Google ad, if you're sending them from a social media ad, if you're sending them from a TV commercial to some type of page with a form, then we should have the video that addresses, see what happens if you fill out this form. So any way that they come in, doesn't matter, but on that page, they need to have that video. Okay? Yes, Aaron?
Do you do one for what happens when they call?
Oh, yeah.
Or is that overkill?
No, dude, that's awesome. You could totally do that. You could totally do that. You could have your call button, and you could have this little arrow that says, watch what happens when you call us. People are going to eat it up. Smart idea, Aaron. Number 5. We already talked about these, but all the questions, we want videos specific to comp. We gave you the list already, separate videos on those. Number 6 of the selling 7, the customer or the hero's journey. We've done a decent job with this in this room. This is one area of focus. I was telling Carl this morning when I was on his website, I noticed that he did a better job than a lot of us in this room of on the home page of his site immediately showing some of those customer case study stories, those client case studies. And so on the customer journey, you should have videos for each one of the types of cases that you do, ideally at least one for each, and with it there's 3 major parts to the customer journey. A, the day everything went wrong. B, the journey they went on with your law firm to fix the problem. And C, where are they today because they went on that journey with you. That's every Disney movie since the beginning of time, and that's the way it needs to be on your website too. But we want it for each one of the major types of cases that you offer, okay? Now, the thing about this is, you might say, well, I've got customer testimonials. A testimonial is not a customer journey video. When somebody comes into the system as a lead and they've had a car accident, in a perfect world, they're getting a video that's a customer journey video that shows someone just like them that was in the same position and they can watch that. So oftentimes we're not integrating this content into our sales process like we should. We did have a few that were doing this well. Who's the hammer? All right. So, Ciara, you were You all did this, like, you did a pretty good job of this. We had, some examples of this. One of the things, though, that you do that I notice that we struggle with in the room is oftentimes with your titles for some of these customer case study or these client case study videos, you are so non-descriptive. Get more descriptive. Like, help me know what the video is about better. We could do so much better. This is actually pretty decent. Sharon and Jean found family after a life-changing accident. James won an unexpected settlement after a serious knee injury. So this is actually a pretty solid one right here. What would be terrible if this was showing, but there's nothing under it. So great job, actually showing what this is about. So pretty good job in this case with the hammer. Okay, finally, number 7 type of video that I'm going to suggest that you produce is the claims that you make. Every firm tends to make claims about themselves. And oftentimes those claims become just noise to the market until you can prove the claim by doing what? Showing the claim and why it's true. So I'm going to just challenge you to do something very simple. Brainstorm the claims that you make about your firm. We're the best this, we're the most that, whatever it is. And then ask yourself, how many of these have we proven to be true with video? How many have we proven to be true with video? And then, if you haven't proven it to be true with video, make a video that proves it to be true. Carl, what's an example of a claim that you make about your firm?
We claim we have good customer experience.
Perfect. We have exceptional customer experience. And what's the issue with that is, of course, what percentage of your competitors would say the same? 100%, right? Nobody's going to say, yeah, that's just not something we care about. And so, because everybody says that, it becomes just noise until you physically show, visually speaking, with video, what makes that customer experience so different. Maybe you show some of your training that you do with your team members. Maybe you show a timeline of what it's like when somebody makes a call and they have to go through this entire journey with you, and you show the step by step. But either way you do it, it's helping the person say, wow, now I get it, versus just you saying what everyone else says. Okay, those are the selling 7, they work. Now, let me just give you 3 simple, I'm going to do a little bit more talking on video. Some of you don't need this, but if you're going to have those in your firm do videos with you, which you need to be a media company, which means that everybody needs to get more serious about video. There's 3 rules that we always teach. I'll go into an organization, we'll shoot videos with them, and they'll start the day and they're like, I'm not good on video, and then a few hours in, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a natural. And the way that it happens is by following 3 simple rules. First and most important rule of video, you got to teach this to your team, otherwise they will just screw this up. It's the don't stop rule. Whenever you shoot a video, and this is for you personally, for your team, the rule should be, no matter what happens, Aaron, you do not stop. It's no different than, have you ever been in a courtroom before, you flubbed up some words and you said, oh, sorry everyone, I'm just going to start the whole thing over again. I screwed that up.
Got to keep going.
Got to keep going. You're living this in your personal life, so we should be living this on video. Some of you hate video because you do too many takes and you're just like, this is so frustrating. Stop doing so many takes. Stop writing out a script. Do not read a script, because if I met with you right now and asked you any of these questions, you wouldn't be reading a script. You would just talk to me like we were in the coffee shop. If anything, you've got a list, a bullet point, an outline. That's it. That's the most writing that you should have. But don't read this stuff, because then I won't believe you. All right? So that's the don't stop rule. You got to teach it to your people, though, because if somebody knows they can stop, guess what? They start stopping a lot because they're more focused on stopping. Very important. Second rule of video. We always teach everyone, 3-second smile. Before you hit action, before you hit record, you start smiling for 3 seconds. And you hold that smile into the video. That way you're coming off of the smile instead of the video starts and then you smile. It doesn't have the same effect. When you're smiling, you're going to be the best version of yourself. Number one observation that people make when they start really seeing themselves communicate on camera often is, I don't smile nearly as much as I should. And so this is one of those things that we got to be really intentional about and just talk to your team. Make it a rule. 3-second smile. We literally, everybody jokes, when we're shooting videos, we're always saying, I'm smiling, and then boom, action. We start like that. I know it sounds ridiculous. And then finally, number 3, which is the good enough rule. You're not BMW. You're not Porsche. Don't try to be like them. We don't want flawless video. We want imperfect video, Henry, right? Imperfect. I want you to mess up on some words. I want you to be just like you're going to be in real life with me. And so if it's good enough, publish the dang video. Those are the 3 rules of video. I tell them to you even though they're obvious because do not just throw your team on video and think they're going to be good. Oftentimes that's not the case. Give them these rules. And oh, by the way, you will find your subject matter experts are much better if they're talking to someone on camera instead of trying to just talk to said camera. So if you put 2 people on the screen and they have a conversation, you'll see that they can just always do it in one take. But if they just try to riff on the screen, oftentimes not as effective. You might find yourself doing multiple takes. Any questions about this? All right. How to start your videos every time. One thing I noticed with our videos, as a whole, we don't really know how to start oftentimes. Visually speaking, don't start with some visual brand element of your company. I don't want to see your company name at first. I don't want to see some special visual. We come right out the gate and we do this right here. Question, question, preview, promise. You can use this for every article you write, every video you produce, and once your team understands this, then they can just start fast and it gets easier to produce content. So for example, Jimmy, give me an example of any question that we get all the time that I could produce a video on right now, and I will use this question, preview, promise. So just give me one that you've already thought of today that you know you want to produce.
How long does it take to settle my case?
All right, how long does it take to settle my case? Okay. All right. Have you been injured and you're wondering to yourself, if I take this to court, how long is this going to settle my case? Or how long is it going to take to settle my case? Are you wondering how much time you're going to have to invest in your life in order to get the results that you want? Well, you're not alone. In fact, many people have this same question. And in fact, in each state it's different. In this video today, we're going to give you a sense for the average length for each one of these settlements for personal injury in the Florida area. And by the time we're done, you'll have a great sense for likely how long of a time investment this will take you. See what we did? Question, question, preview, promise. Just do it every time. Are you wondering, are you asking yourself, now the classic one in legal is, have you or someone you love been injured in an accident? But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about every single time you start one of these videos, literally come right out with empathy and say, are you thinking to yourself, or you're wondering, you're saying, is it really like that? Should I do it that way? This is the time for you to hit the mark. We want the person nodding in the first few seconds. And you shouldn't have to ever debate, how do I start this video? Just start with what they're thinking. Any questions about this? Questions about this? All right. What do you think, Lloyd? How long should your video be? As long as it takes to answer the question well without wasting any time. So if that means 5 minutes, totally fine. If that means 10 minutes, totally fine. There is short form video, though. We're going to talk about that in a second. All right. So you noticed that we've got 2 types of video now, though. We've got traditional YouTube. It's that horizontal video. They do tend to be longer. But then in 2017, this thing called TikTok enters the world and changes everything. That's when we see vertical video that is integrated into the mix. Vertical, short style video. And since that time, everybody has gone in that direction. Some of you are doing short form video in this room. As a whole, we're not experiencing success with it in this room yet. Short form video, TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts is one of the quickest ways for you to send out a lot of signals that your brand is worthy of attention. It's one of the quickest ways to hit people outside of the funnel. Awareness builder. It's not great for people that have already had an accident per se, but it is great for general awareness of your brand in the marketplace. Should you do both? Yes, you should do both. The problem is, short video rises and falls on one thing. If you're on TikTok or any of those things, and that is, does the person actually stick around and do they watch the video? And this is the part that most of us don't do very well. We don't know how to make people click the video, and then we don't know how to make people stick on the video. I'm going to show you a simple method that you can use to make them click and make them stick. And you want to follow these 5 simple steps every single time you're creating a short form video. By the way, raise your hand if you're creating short form video right now on TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts. All right, most of us in this room. And I noticed most of you were doing it, but we need to do a better job. So, call these the sticky 5. If you're going to stick, if you're going to hit a home run, this is how you're going to do it. Number 1, you've got the hook at the beginning. What is the hook? The hook comes in 2 forms. It's the title and it's the first few seconds. When you create a title for a short form video, it's different than if you're doing a long form video. A short form video, you're more focused on creating what's known as a curiosity gap. A curiosity gap. So, for example, creating a gap, Carl, might mean gentleman gets in a car accident, and then this happened with his settlement. You don't know how this ends, but you're wondering, how does this end? And so if the title of the short doesn't make you say, how does this end, it's probably not a good title. It's probably not a good title. So are you thinking about your shorts right now, Jimmy? How many of your shorts right now make somebody from the very beginning with the title itself, how many makes them say, I want to know how that ends? Oh, well, if you don't do them, yeah, 0% is probably it. Good, okay, good. All right. Who's doing shorts again? Who's doing shorts? Who's doing shorts? Yeah. Henry, how well are you creating that curiosity gap?
Probably not well.
Yeah, you've got to make them say, I got to see how this ends. I have a fishing company in North Carolina, and we have a YouTube channel called Saltwater Fishing University. And so I'm constantly creating shorts on this channel because it's a growing channel. We got like 80,000 subscribers. And so whenever we're doing it, we might say something like, how do you get a 500-pound tuna into the boat? You're thinking to yourself, I want to know. How do you get a 500-pound tuna into the boat? Right? You know, we hooked up on a 1,000-pound tuna, and then this happened next. Well, what happened next? So these are the hooks that bring them in. And then at the very beginning, once again, you want to reestablish the hook. Second rule of the Sticky 5 is what's called the 3-second rule, which means basically this. Every 3 to 5 seconds, the scene should change. Different scene. Every 3 to 5 seconds. You'll notice if you are looking at Instagram videos, if you're looking at TikTok videos, you'll notice that if you pay attention, the scene's changing every 3 to 5 seconds. You want to do the same thing. Okay? This is what makes it possible for you, like literally, you could do a customer case study of their entire journey, like a client case study. From the day they had everything go wrong to how their life is today. In 60 seconds, you could show what happens over 9 months, but the key is every 3 to 5 seconds. It's a new element of the story. And then this happened, and then they did this, and then this is what happened next. And because of that, then they did this, and then it keeps going. Okay, so 3-second rule we want to follow every single time. The progress principle. What this means is every scene of the video should feel like it's building. If it's not building towards a crescendo, get it out. Get rid of it. Number 4, there should be a payoff to the video. There should be a landing. One thing that you all could do much better with short video is tell great stories. Great stories of different cases that you've had that makes people say, oh, that's intriguing, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then boom, there's a payoff, and they're like, wow, that's wild. That's wild. So that's how you do it. And then finally, number 5, the quit while you're ahead principle. This basically means this. As soon as you've had the payoff, as soon as it lands, stop the video. Because if you hold the video, guess what? Retention goes down. That's why if I catch a fish, as soon as I catch the fish, as soon as I catch it, I stop the video. Because if I catch the fish and then everybody celebrates, and I show everybody celebrating, guess what? Viewers too impatient, and that hurts the retention. So if you watch our videos, you'll be like, wow, as soon as it happens, boom, he cuts it off. That's because you quit while we're ahead. All right? Now, Lloyd, you're doing some short form video, right? Little bit? How well are you doing these 5?
Not at all.
Not at all. If you start thinking about these 5 with your short form, going to completely change up. Michael, I think you're doing some short form. How well are you doing these 5?
Not well.
Makes sense when you see it, though? Give me an example of a title of a video that you could do, Michael, that would like draw me in. See if you can give me a curiosity gap. Quick test here.
Yeah, you know, this is why we have a social media company. they give me these, you know, we start with this, and then I run.
Yeah, I know, but I want you to think differently, right? So, like, for example,
Oh, all right. Can you believe you went to law school for 3 years and you take the bar exam and they make you do it again because it didn't register?
Okay.
That's what just happened in California.
Okay, good. So on this one might be, this crazy law is ruining people after they attend law school, right? This crazy new law is ruining people after they attend law school. Now, that might be the title. And you might start with saying, you know, I just saw someone go through 3 years of law school, and guess what? They've got to do it again. That's your first hook right there, right? And then we're going to change every 3 to 5 seconds. We're going to add a new element to the story. Maybe it's a different shot, a different B-roll, a different look about something, but it's crescendoing. And then, wouldn't you know it? You know what happened? Boom, payoff at the end. And then, boom, we stop. So I want you to start thinking like that, and you're going to start to see a lot better results with your videos. Any questions about short form video? Short form video is here to stay. It is not going anywhere, I promise. It is a mega trend, and it's going to affect you and the signals that AI is getting and the signals your brand is getting for a long time. Yes, Lucy?
So no call to action.
Great. On short form video, no call to action. You're exactly right. Get in, get out.
You talked about doing a short form video. Really, you're saying take a great case study, but what percentage, if any, would you recommend that has nothing to do with the practice? It's us as a person. Like, for example, we did one last year. I have a sweet tooth. Like, literally, I reviewed Girl Scout cookies. That's one of our short form videos, just trying to do a human to mix things up. So, what is your perspective on that?
I mean, is it possible to do that? Yes, but what I find is this is a learned skill, and I would say, well, I'm going to try to find out how to be creative with something that has to do with law. And I would put my energy there versus some of the other stuff that, you know, you might do, but it's probably not going to perform well either. So I want, once something hits and goes big, I want it to be about law. Not about something that has nothing to do with my firm, and it won't ultimately build my firm. But, you know, I could be wrong. Seriously, I could be.
Marcus, I have a quick question. We do what I consider to be a decent amount of short form video, and I've always been under the impression, as we've been doing them, that one of the points is to have it be different than longer form in the sense that it's designed to look more human and more, lack of a better word, amateurish.
Yeah.
Not look professional.
Yep.
How do you reconcile that with changing the scene every 3 to 5 seconds? Because that feels to me that it's going to undermine that and look more professional.
Now think about it like this though, Neil. If you're walking down the street, it's like, would you believe this happened recently? And then just on a different take, maybe now you're sitting down somewhere in your office. Yeah, because this new law came into effect. New scene. Right? It's like you're just changing the scene around.
So you don't think it loses the effect?
No, like your ability to feel raw that's just going to be based on the way you shoot the video. So you're not going to lose this at all if you do this the right way. If you're doing that 3 to 5 second rule the right way, you can, and you'll notice this, man. You'll see a ton of raw videos that are just like supernatural, but that scene is changing every 3 to 5. And you'll see now, like, oh, that's one of the differences. So, like, I'm not going to take a video and walk down the street and just do something for 60 seconds. I'm going to do something for 5 seconds, and then I'm just going to change something up about it, even though I have to change my shirt, and then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it a different way so it keeps the person guessing almost. All right?
Can you simplify it by using green screen and then have just editing?
Can you use green screen? You could, Carl, but it never quite feels right. I'm not saying that it won't in the future with AI, but if you're just sitting there, you have to be in motion. You should be changing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Green screen makes you stand pretty much still.
And how long should the best short form video be?
Well, short form video is as long as or short as that platform allows it to be. So the rules of that are changing. It just changed. You can go, like now it can be up to like 3 minutes in YouTube. I don't even know what TikTok is right now. What is TikTok 3 minutes to? I forget. So everything's pretty much less than 3 minutes now. But in Facebook, I think it's still less than 90 seconds or a minute. YouTube was a minute, but now it went up. Okay? All right. We are having lunch where? Out by the pool. It's 12:10. All right. I'm going to share this one final story, and then we're going to have break for lunch. Okay? By the way, has anybody got any takeaways yet today? If you haven't, I am failing you. Hugo, have you got any takeaways? Yes, sir. All right, good. Now, real quick, before lunch, I want to talk about assignment selling. This does apply to you, so just stay with me. It'll make sense. So one question I have is, how many pages of your website do you think a potential customer is willing to read before they actually engage you? How many pages of your website? On average?
5.
1, 5? Here's what we find. This number is often grossly underestimated by the business. Do you realize some people would be willing to read hundreds of pages of your website if it was valuable to them? Because they're getting ready to make a big decision by doing business with you. And so this number here changed my life. At the beginning of some years back now, I was comparing 2 groups of people on my swimming pool website. Both had filled out a form and said, I want to get a quote. This group here bought, this group here didn't buy. So I said, what is the difference between those that did versus did not buy? And what I kept seeing was the number 30. It kept jumping out underneath the group that had bought. And of course, that number 30 represented what? Number of pages viewed, Henry. This is what we found. If somebody read 30 or more pages of our website before the initial sales appointment, they would buy 80% of the time. 80% of the time. And so knowing that, we completely evolved the way that we sold. And so now, if somebody would call me up, and say, hey, I'm checking out your website. Could you come out to my house this Friday? We were very intentional about using content in the sales process. So I would say something like this. Henry calls me up, hey, Marcus, I'm checking out your website. Could you come out to my house this Friday and give me a quote for a pool? And I would say, I'd love to, but you're getting ready to spend a lot of money. And if you're going to spend a lot of money, Henry, I know you don't want to make any mistakes. And so as to make sure you don't make any mistakes, here's what I'm going to do. As we're talking on the phone right now, I'm going to send you 2 things that you're going to love. First thing I'm going to send you is a video that shows you the entire install process. This way you're going to see exactly what it looks like when the pool shows up, goes in the ground, the cleanup, the whole 9. And when I come out Friday, you're not going to say, so Marcus, what does this process look like? You're already going to know. The second thing I'm going to send you is a guide that is really going to answer some questions about buying a pool that you probably should have, but you haven't thought about yet. Like, should I get a heater? What's the best type of heater? Should it be gas? Should it be electric? Should it heat and cool my water? Should I get a cover? What's the best type of cover? Should it be mesh? Should it be solid? So this guide's about 30 pages, but I promise it'll be well worth your time. Will you take the time to review these things before our appointment on Friday? And 90% of the time, he says the exact same thing, which is yes. The problem that I see with a lot of companies is that you got this content, but you don't intentionally integrate it into your sales process. So there's oftentimes all these opportunities. Like you mentioned earlier, Rob, you've got these fielders, right? So if the fielders that are taking these calls, if they're not intentionally integrating content somehow into this mix, that is going to help them become more familiar with you, with the firm, with their fears being addressed, whatever it is, there's a decent chance that we're missing great opportunities. Even if we've already made the close, things that will help lock them in, because I'm sure there's some attrition, right? Sometimes people say, yes, I want to go with you, and they end up backing out for whatever reason. They go with somebody else, or we hear whatever the thing is. We've got to do whatever we can to lock them in from a trust standpoint. We should be using content more aggressively, because the more they read, to what we said earlier, Cecilia, the higher the sunk cost, the more they're looking for reasons to do business with us. So we don't want to be passive about that. We want to be very, very intentional about that. You all would find that if you did enough research and analysis on your leads, that there's a tipping point number that when somebody consumes a certain amount of your content, they become a customer almost every single time. And so we don't need to figure that out, but I can tell you it's more than 1 or 2. If you produce the content I was showing you earlier, they will consume a lot more content on your site. You will find people, and I kid you not, that will watch or read hundreds of pages of your website. Our average customer at River Pools generally views about 100 pages now of our website, about 100 pages. Now, it's a visual product. I know that they're going to see more than if they were if it was an attorney, but I guarantee you, some of you could easily have an average of 20, 25, 30 that you would find with your clients if the content was there. Okay? Okay, so we only have an hour, at least for me, and I want us to take full advantage of this hour. Thank you for leaning in as much as you have. Let's continue to lean in. What I'm getting ready to tell you is going to be very, very significant to your business. It's a mega trend. Starts with this number right here. 75% of all buyers today say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. So what does this mean? It doesn't mean we hate salespeople. It just means we don't want to talk to a human until when? Until we feel like we have done our homework and we're not going to make a mistake. This is major. So essentially what this means is, just like we started with that 80% number and so much was happening before they reach out to a salesperson, I want to have control. So what does this mean when it comes to the legal space like we're in here? All right. Self-service is our future in many ways, especially for websites. What is self-service? Self-service is when somebody can come to your site, they can do an interactive tool or experience, and they get something in return that is similar to what in the past they would have gotten if they were talking to a human like a salesperson. So there's 5 types. There's self-assessment, self-selection, self-pricing, self-configuration, self-scheduling. I'm not going to go too much into self-configuration, but I'm going to talk about some of these others. Let's talk about just self-assessment briefly. Self-assessment basically is whenever someone comes to your site, if they want to get a score for something. So can anybody imagine how you would give someone, or what you might give someone a score on? Can you think of it before I say it?
Value of their case.
That's right. So potentially you could give them a value of their case, or if they even have a case at all, the strength of their case. And so an example of this would be if you had a tool where they came to your site and there was a series of questions that you would ask, and the name of the tool was find out here if you have a case, get your case assessment score. And so then there's a series of questions that you would normally ask. Like, for example, Jimmy, what's a question that you would ask someone to be able to tell them whether or not they have a case? Like, what's an example of a question?
Were you injured?
Okay, yeah, were you injured? What type of injury did you have? Right. So there's a series of questions. At the end of that, you give them an assessment score, and now all of a sudden they say, okay, I have more of a case than I realized. Instead of having to talk to you, human to human, to find this out, many would prefer to find that out by using a tool and then saying, I feel comfortable enough to reach out. That's an example of self-assessment. One tool that I love for that is called Score App. Score App, one word. It's a very inexpensive tool, but you could quickly use this tool to create a self-assessment for your websites right now.
A lot of people think that. A lot of people prefer that over talking to someone because I always feel like it's because they don't want to hear the answer, or they feel like the answer you're going to give is not what they wanted to hear.
So I'm going to get into this, Jimmy. It's a great point. Lots of times people don't want to be embarrassed with the answer they're given. The biggest reason why people don't reach out and call and say, how much is it, is because they don't want to have to say, I can't afford that. So what happens? They don't reach out at all. It's crazy, but this happens all the time. So I'm going to show you some more examples of this. If you went to River Pools right now, I know that there are certain things that you need to find out if we're going to have a great sales appointment. So for example, I have an interactive tool on the website that allows you to figure out what size and shape pool is best for your needs. Now this is advantageous, of course, because by the time I get to the home, they're able to say, I already know what shape I want based on that interactive tool. Second, I don't want someone when I get to the home to say to me, should I get a concrete, a fiberglass, or a vinyl liner pool? Convince me. I know that that is a disaster most of the time. So I have an interactive quiz or tool that gives a recommendation on the website. And it literally tells people, as I'll show you, don't get fiberglass, even though that's all we sell. And then finally, we were the first manufacturer in the world that had a build and price your swimming pool tool on our website. Even though we don't set the end price, we could still build this tool, and it became a cash cow. And I'm going to show you how they work, and then we're going to apply it to us. So let's talk self-selection. Self-selection is when you're trying to give someone, self-scheduling. Self-scheduling is when we're giving visitors the ability to schedule time with you or someone on your team without having to talk to you first. So does anybody have a scheduling tool on your website that allows someone on their own to schedule time with a human versus them just filling out a form and they are contacted by the human? Do you see the difference? Does anybody have that on your site right now? Now, here's what's interesting. And some of you could do this, and this is going to, if you did this, it would flip the whole industry on its head for those that have larger firms, and that is this. I've been experimenting with self-scheduling tools. People love it. But, I'm going to show you what happens here in a second. I'm going to show you the experiment we've been running. This company's called Yale Appliance. They're in Boston, Mass. They sell kitchen appliances. You can visit their showroom one of three ways. One, you can just walk in as a surprise. Two, you can call and they'll give you a sales rep to work with. Three, you can schedule on the website who you work with. Here's where it gets wild, okay? So let's say you want to go to the showroom to get a quote for kitchen appliances. Instead of calling, you click on the website, get started, then you see the different salespeople that work for them. You see their face, you read their bio, you can choose which one that you want to work with, and then you'll sync with their calendar, you'll go in, and that's who you're going to see. Now, here's what's wild. This is a quote from the CEO. Our schedule a visit tool is the best thing we do. Closing rate is 62% higher and roughly 4,000 in sales per appointment. That's double the average appointment. Here's what I've seen over and over again. This is where it gets crazy. I've done this with financial advisors. I've not done it with attorneys yet, but somebody in this room probably could pull this off and it'd be crazy. When you allow someone to go to your website, see all the bios of all the attorneys that work for you, and then choose which attorney they work with, closing rates double every single time. So it's almost guaranteed now that they're not going to shop around. Why is that?
They've got control.
Because they have control, Patrick. That's exactly right. And everybody wants control. So it's crazy. So I've got a financial advisor in New Zealand that has a tool like this now. They have a series of advisors. You get to see a video on your advisor. You get to see their bio, all that stuff. You choose your advisor. Second they implemented it, double the closing rates. Now, we can all hear that and say, there's no way logistically I could ever do that with my firm. Well, you might say that to yourself, but I guarantee you, within the next couple of years, you're going to see somebody in law that is literally going to allow almost the Uber effect where they can choose which attorney they want to work with, and then you're going to see an explosion for that company. Believe it or not, Neil.
So do you think it works?
You use my name, so I have a question. Sorry, Rob. Quick question. You're invariably going to have, one of the things as the managing attorney in my firm is to manage caseloads of lawyers. How do you avoid a scenario where if you exclude yourself from, because everybody's going to pick the person that's in the end.
Yeah.
There's a lot of subparts to that logistically that I'm thinking.
Yeah, here's what's great, right? So you have, eventually, AI is going to have it set up so AI is going to know what your current caseload is per each attorney. And so it's going to come up with a simple algorithm that's going to say, should be showing right now, or they take them off the list so they're not showing. And so they essentially, each one of your attorneys will come in or out of being shown at different times depending on what their schedule is. No different than what we just saw with Yale. If they have somebody go on vacation, they're going to take them off. And so it's always evolving. It's changing.
So then it only really works with companies and firms of a certain size, because if you only have 3 lawyers, and by that algorithm, 2 of them are removed, it's sort of like the Henry Ford thing, right? You can have any color you want as long as it's black, right? You end up funneling people into a scenario where the perception of control is lost.
Correct. So this is dramatically more effective if there's more choices. But I would say for those that only have one attorney, well, that's not always going to be the case. You're going to be growing. But the principle here is what I want people to take away, which is when they can choose who they work with, something crazy happens. And the question that you have to answer is, well, do I want those closing rates? And it's literally, I'm just telling you that I now have done this in enough industries where it's like, this is wild stuff, and nobody's doing it. Show me an industry where you get to choose who you work with, like when it comes to a sales perspective. I know this is not the same thing as sales, but this is like every person wants control of who they work with. There's no question, too, in your firm, you have found that certain attorneys work better with certain types of clients.
Or their specialties.
There's specialties. There's all like, it's like there's just some people would rather work with a woman. Some people would rather work with a man. Some people would rather, work with whatever. I mean, someone of their own race. I don't know. Like, listen, I'm not going to try to judge people on their preferences. I just know that when it comes to them wanting to do business with you, it explodes when they have the choice.
Can you set this up so they have a choice, but then they're responded to by intake?
Carl, you could set this up however you want it. I'm presenting this as a major psychological phenomenon that I am seeing in sales. As to what you do with it, it is your call.
Right, but how do you think? So that's really the direction I was going to go. So real numbers. So in February, we signed up 904 cases.
Yep.
We have how many lawyers now, Kim?
29.
29 lawyers. They can't sign up 904 cases. It's
Right.
just not logistically possible. So if you created the screen as you showed it, so we do three things: PI, social, VA.
Mhm.
You can list your lawyers under each one, select who you want to work with, but have the intake team, let's say, assigned to whatever. So it's almost like a team concept.
Sure, I could see ways, Rob, where you did it, and you could even say on there, here's our lawyers. We can't guarantee that they can work with you based on caseload, but by you selecting who you want to work with, that'll help us to make the closest match for you. You could do it also where you're not showing all the choices, but you're saying,
No,
hey.
I have no problem with them selecting who they're going to work with.
Right.
But not for the sign up.
Sure, I'm not, and I agree, like the sign up potentially could be problematic. But I think also you could do it in such a way where you didn't even show all your attorneys, all the people on your team, but you asked a series of questions that provided a match service for their needs so that they weren't so nervous about who am I going to work with. So potentially that's also an option. So if someone says, I'm sure somebody said to you, you got like hundreds of attorneys, how do I know I'm getting a good one? And if you said to them, well, if you could choose certain variables and that dictated who we offered you based on your choices, would that sound more appealing to you? Pretty much everybody will say yes at that point. So this is I know for this field, super experimental. I'm telling you, somebody's going to do it. It's going to be pretty wild when they do it.
If somebody selected that and then it went to an intake department, that person in the intake department would know who the client selected, right?
Yes.
So you could build that into, I guess, an intake platform. You say, I see you selected so-and-so, that's an excellent choice. I just need to get some additional information before the case gets assigned to that person, right?
Yeah, and what's cool about this is now, Mike or Mary who got the case, they can get the notification. They could hypothetically send an immediate personalized video that says, hey, Mr. Jones, I saw that you selected me. I just want you to know I'm excited to work with you. Our intake person, or whatever you call it, is going to be helping you out with all the paperwork. Like that is like there's a stone cold lead pipe lock that they're 100% not shopping at that point. Okay? We got? So, Anthony, how do you feel about that one?
I would be more, I was talking to Bonnie here about how upset a potential client would be though they pick somebody that actually isn't a good fit for them at all, and then you're saying, well, no, you can't use them. We're going to reassign you to this person. I don't know. Like I said, it's experimental in this field. I'd like to see how it works.
Yeah, but the psychology at this point isn't experimental. It hasn't been done in legal, but it's like in terms of the gains are wild when people have choice. So what we need to focus on is how can we offer more sense of choice and control to the market that my competitors are not offering. That's what you should be taking away from this. How you end up applying it, that's probably going to evolve over time because it's got to be very dynamic anyway. You're going to probably start off with something a little bit clunky and it's going to get better and better and better.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, right.
You think that if most of us here have a multi-member intake team, it's not as high level involvement as your attorney, but all of us have like pre-lit lawyers where you can't just pick what you want. Do you think we get some of this effect if we put our 3 intake team members up there and they can pick who they wanted to talk to about the case?
I 100% think you could do this, like speak to someone on our intake team or however you want to call it. I don't know if people understand what intake means, but whatever you call that, and they saw 3 people on the screen, speak to one of these 3 right now. the first thing they're going to say is, are you really the same person I'm looking at on the screen? Intake person says, yep, that's me. And it's a completely different UX. And I think it's a great idea, Rick. Smart. Way to apply the principle. Okay. Then we got self-selection. Self-selection, that was fun. I'm glad we caused good controversy. All right. Self-selection. Give visitors the ability to make important decisions by you guiding them virtually to a conclusion, i.e. recommendation. So self-selection is generally a recommendation tool. You have been asked many times by people before questions like, if you're me, which would you choose? What's the best blank for me? Well, a self-selection tool is just like this. So, for example, let's say you do the tool on my website, which is, what is the right type of pool for me? We're going to have a video that explains it. You can skip the video if you want. Then we're going to ask you a series of questions, like, how important is project duration to you? What shape do you see here that is most aligned with your needs? And let's be hypothetical. Let's say the person said, I want something that's very customized. Well, fiberglass is not this. So I'm going to show you what happens if somebody is clearly not a good fit. So once they've done that, we're going to ask them questions like, do you want a pool that's deeper than 8 feet? The reason why we're going to ask this question is because fiberglass doesn't get deeper than 8 feet. Then we're going to ask a question like, all right, how important is eliminating maintenance to you? Well, it matters. It doesn't matter. I don't care because I'm going to have a pool guy anyway. We're going to ask questions about how much sport activity will you do in the pool? Because roughness of the surface could impact things. And by the end of this, we're even going to say, what is your projected budget range? Then we're going to give a recommendation. Congratulations. Based on the choices you made, it appears vinyl would be your best option. Not sure why. See exactly why with this full report. And then we send them a full report. Notice by this point, up to this point, we haven't asked for an email. We haven't converted the lead. Here we convert the lead. And as soon as they convert, now they're going to see an explanation as to why the pool is a good fit based on their answers, why potentially it's not a good fit based on their answers. We're going to show them also all the questions we asked, every response they gave, and how each swimming pool matches with the responses that they gave. Every single day people come to our site and I recommend don't buy from us. Every day. And this is how you do things that help you become the most trusted voice. Because if somebody is a good fit for fiberglass, then they're a raving fan. So that's a recommendation tool when there's a choice called self-selection. Can anybody think of a question that you might use a tool like this to help someone to make a choice? Should I get this? Should I get that? Who can think of one? Come on. What's the best blank for me? Come on.
Should I try to settle the case myself? Should I get an attorney?
Perfect. Lloyd, are there times when the person should try to settle the case themselves?
Sure.
100%. And are there times when they definitely shouldn't go down that road? Yes. So that's a very legitimate question. That is an example, a perfect example of a tool every single person here. If you are consistently dealing with leads who are like, that is not something that we do, that is way too low level, whatever it is, we should have had a recommendation tool on our site. This thing converts like wild for me. It's wild. You could do it too if you show it the right way. Everybody got it? What's another? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any information about when you're adding tools, surveys, calculators, you're also going to have people that are going to drop out. They don't want
Yes.
to finish.
Yes.
Versus just having something, number, email, call me directly. So do you have any information?
Yeah, but here's the thing. The number, email, call me directly, that's there anyway. That doesn't change. What happens with self-service is you just end up getting way more conversions than you previously got. So if you have this plus a contact form, or you have just a contact form, I can guarantee you for just that type of tool right there, you're probably going to see like a 2 to 3x increase versus the contact form. And we do a ton of these tools, and so I've become incredibly familiar. I have a software company that does these tools, but just for pricing estimators, which I'll show you in a second. These tools are crazy for conversions. If you're having a lead problem, this is one of the greatest ways for you to convert way more of your existing visitors to your site. It's inexpensive, and once you've paid for it one time, you don't keep paying for it. You build the tool, it ain't much, and bam, you're having a better interactive experience. That one you said, Lloyd, for the love of all that's pure and holy, put that on your site and let the conversions happen. Just make sure that you're showing it somewhere on that home page and it's vibrant and people can see it pretty easily. Because otherwise, if it's buried like anything else, it won't get found. Okay? So, consider that. You've got a lot of these questions. I could give you a ton right now. I'm not going to go into it. This you should be doing. Now, self-pricing. This is when you give visitors the ability to get a price range, or they get a potential, what will be the word here, settlement range, or whatever the range is. What's the right phrase? Case valuation. Thank you, Jan. That's much better than what I said. Okay, so let's say somebody wants a case valuation. By the way, some of you in this room think you're doing this, and you're not. You're not. We can do this much better. So, let's say you want to build and price your pool on our website. I'll show you how we do this. We do not set the end price. So if we don't set the end price because we have dealers around the country, because we became a manufacturer, well then how do we have a pricing estimator? We give a range. And so I'm going to show you how this works. Then we're going to apply it, of course, to legal. So build and price your pool tool. Here, they get to choose the pool they want first. Once they've chosen the pool that they want, one thing I want to mention to you is you always, and this was to your question earlier, we always show them what step they're on, and we show them that they can continue later. And the reason is they should see that they're making progress. If they see they're making progress, they're much more likely to stay using the tool. If they don't see they're making progress and they don't know when the end is coming, then they'll opt out. All right? People are funny like that. So once they choose the shape they like, then we're going to explain to them what comes with their standard package. Once they have all that explained to them, then we're going to allow them to make some choices. What type of patio do you want for your pool? And we give options like concrete, stamped, pavers, stone. If they don't know what it is, we have a link next to each one because we're not going to assume that people know what our legalese actually mean. And so we're going to make sure we have these types of links that says, what is this? If you don't know what brushed concrete is, what is this will tell you, and you can find out. Just like if a salesperson was there and the salesperson says, do you want brushed concrete? Do you want stand concrete? The person's like, I don't know what that means. We explain it right here within the tool itself. Once they've done that, then they can choose their upgrades, like vacuums and water features. And once they've done that, we're going to even cover some other factors that they might want to consider that could cost, like a retaining wall, electrical, fences. And finally, when that's done, we have the form. Now, this is important. Some of you are screwing this up right now on your own site because you have case valuation tools that are poorly done, and you've got this to a degree. But notice, this is the final step. We don't put this first. Do not put the form first. Have them go through the journey to where they can suddenly, they're like seconds away from getting their case valuation number, and then they see the form. Now you're going to convert at a much, much, much higher rate. So they fill out the form and it says you're seconds away, complete the form, the pricing will be instantly emailed to you. You're seconds away, complete the form, and your case estimate value will be sent to you immediately, right? As soon as that's done, now they get an email. That email gives a range, overall price estimate, $68,000 to $83,000. It explains some of the things they said they wanted, and now they can schedule real time that next call if they want. But I've got their information anyway. Now it's time for me to work our marketing and sales magic. Okay? We were the first ones in the industry to do this. During a summer day, I'll get 100 to 200 leads a day from this. 100 to 200. I started a company called PriceGuide.ai. Basically what it is, it's a software company that allows any organization to quickly build an estimator tool that they can put on their website. So what I'm about to tell you is rooted in a lot of data at this point. We see consistently that when somebody has a tool like this on their website, conversion rates from their site triple, 300% increase if you are offering this. Now the issue that I have though is Like, there's a few times when I was on your sites. So for this one, which one's McCready? All right, so Michael, I was on your site, said, what is your case worth? I'm fired up because I'm thinking, I found the person that's got this tool. I am so stoked. I click on it, and what do I get, Michael?
I don't know, but I'm afraid.
All right. Right. I definitely did not get an answer that said what my case was worth. So I felt like this was a false promise here. I was really excited. And that, because you titled this perfectly, I'm like, oh yeah, my man, he's got himself a tool. You feel me on here, Daniel? You see what I'm saying, right? So this would be very, very easy to have that interactive tool right here. Like on the home page, front and center, killer for conversions. And it takes me to a form that, like everybody else has, you just want me to contact you, but you haven't given me anything, and I was totally, totally sad about that. Okay, then I also saw this one. Who's this? All right. Is it Sierra or Sierra? Sierra. All right, Sierra. Find out what your case is worth. I was like, promised land. I am here. And so the hammer is going to lead the way. And so I filled out the form for the hammer. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to get in their system now, but I'm going to fill out this form because I'm ready for the payoff to see how much my case is worth. Drum roll, please. And then it said, we are using the details you provided to assess your case worth. We will call you shortly to discuss the case value. I said, you son of a motherless goat. How could you do this to me? Now, Hammer has done a lot of great things, but this was frustrating because I said, they've got it, and I knew you had it, and then you just totally, totally let me down. Now, why in the world is no one in this room that I'm aware of showing case valuation like this in a self-service way that is an incredible lead magnet? Yes?
But now here's the next question. When you do that case valuation, are you also then explaining to them about attorney's fees and case expenses so that they get a real understanding of what their case is going to end up being, a percentage of value? And
so what would your answer be to that question?
Who cares? Get them on the phone. We're a lead magnet.
Yeah.
Talk to them, you can have a conversation.
It is your choice, Cecilia. But I tell you, if you want a lot more conversions, remember how we started with 4 pillars? I said, you need to talk about, you need to show, you need to talk about, you need to show, you need to sell, and you need to be more human than everybody else in your space. When you look at this, let's assume that we got the actual answer here. Let's assume it for a second. That is talking, that is showing, that is selling in a way that nobody is doing. Now, who here feels realistically I could do that? I could show case valuation ranges, and we could do this in a way that was safe. Adam, you feel like you could do it?
Well, in a different way. I think do I need a personal injury lawyer? It's a great way to get them to contact one by identifying stuff like, are you getting treatment? Are you planning on following treatment? How did the accident? Is it just property damage you're concerned about? Probably with case valuation, I'm curious to get Rob's take on it, is with your product, and I know it's probably not down to penny, you have certain amounts for your pools, your upgrades. The personal injury case, it's about limits, it's about extended injury, and a lot of answers that...
But here's the thing though, Adam. If I came to you right now, and I'm not trying to be snarky as I ask you this, I mean it sincerely as I ask it. If I came to you right now and I said, I've been injured, I'm not going to hold you to it, but can you give me potentially a sense of what my case valuation might be? If you ask me a series of questions, could you give me a general answer?
Ethically, probably not initially at first blush.
Okay, so there is... All right, so go ahead, Rob. And listen, by the way, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. Everybody knows that I'm a dumb pool guy. By this point, you know my IQ is way lower than yours. So, Rob, what is your suggestion as to how it might work?
So let's start with the easier assessment. They have another lawyer. and they've already treated for their case, but they don't like what their lawyer said, and now they're trying to wonder if their lawyer is lowballing them. So they could say, is it a soft tissue injury case or other? Have they had an MRI? Have you had a spinal stimulator? Have you had surgery? How long did you treat for? What's the total of your medical bills? They could enter all that information in 100%. And you, on the phone, I would give them a value. That's going to be worth in the range of X.
But what about the insurance?
Well, that has nothing to do with the value of their case.
Well,
That's a separate question.
They're in the
So
dark with their current law firm, how are they gonna have any information?
no one, you would never, I mean, there's a million ways to say it won't work.
Yes.
And
No, I
and for everybody in this room, we're not doing anything that he showed, right? Why? Because either we didn't think about it, or we thought it might not work. But the reason he's here, and the reason that we're here, is to think out of the box, try new things. There's no question you could try this and see if you could build it. You could easily build 8 questions to get to somebody's value. Does that mean that you're going to hit it out of the park? No. But you're going to give them information to a reasonable degree of certainty based on the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of cases you've done, and put a range. And you know what? When you talk to them, and you have a disclaimer obviously on the website that says this is going to, the ranges could vary based on a number of factors such as treatment, such as policy limits of the defendant, do you have uninsured motorists? However, this gives you a range based on the information you've provided.
I think it's not, since we only market to, God knows, I hope you can look at our website, because it really is a brochure site, because we currently only take our cases from referring attorneys, so we don't market to the public at all today. But we're starting to market to the public now. I'm trying to make this whole decision. I've got a stack of paper this high in my hotel room I'm going through right now with agencies, so it's very interesting when you started this morning, but of proposals. But I think all this makes 100% sense, and it's all these things that probably like 30 or 40% of it I brought up initially because I'm thinking about how I would want to buy.
There you go, Jen. Jen, you just said something really important, though. What's interesting is when I tell people, do you believe in the golden rule? Most people say yes. And if I show any of these and I say, would you prefer they did that if you were the potential client on their website? The answer is always, well, yes.
Yes, but what I keep getting told by multiple people is that I am not the typical client, right? Like I am not it would be...
That is crappy advice. And whoever is giving you that advice, you need to remove them from your advice friend group because that is not good advice. When it comes to marketing, listen to me. I'm serious. When it comes to marketing, your best guide is your own behavior. I am serious. The reason why I have now taken this system and changed industry. I have so many companies now that are the most trafficked website in the world in their industry following this stuff is because they follow the dang golden rule. Do not overthink it, and do not let anybody tell you, but your buyer is not that, and your system is not like that, and your industry, and I'm not saying that's not, to a degree, truthful, it has essence. Rob, your points were great about, could you do this? Now remember, when you do this, you might end up saying to someone, based on what you just said, your case, if it's like 90% of the cases, it's going to fall somewhere between $2,500 and $250,000. $25,000 and $250,000. That's a massive range, right? And then you might say, now, in our state, the average settlement for such and such was such and such. You might say that in the tool. Now all of a sudden you've isolated more. And then you're going to say, here's some factors that would affect these numbers. But you can say what you want. Whoever does this is going to get a crap ton more leads than he or she who does not. I promise you that. I bet my life.
I'll second that. And the reason why, all these lead gen companies are doing this. That's how they're getting effing leads. They're selling to us. So they're doing it, and they're whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it works because it's selling the shit to us.
And the thing is that every single person that trades
All right. That's fun debate. And boy, do I love debate.
I have a quick question. Regardless of
I'm listening.
Regardless of the industry, your market research shows you they'd rather go through 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps to put their contact information in than 30 seconds just putting it in and saying, hey, looking for full quote or an attorney quote.
There's both types of buyers, Adam. So you have, what we know is most people don't reach a threshold of comfort until they've done interactive experiences like that to make them say, I will fill out the contact form. The contact form is a high commitment for many people. It's because now they know I'm inviting things into my life. It's also interesting that it's for the same reason like people are afraid to use AI for some of these chat experiences. But what we've found is that humans are much more likely to be honest with AI than they are with humans. It's really wild. Really crazy. If I showed you some of the conversations that my AI bot has with our customers, it's nuts. And I'm like, they would not ask me that.
Is it because they think AI is not judgmental? And
They think AI is not judging them, and so there's no reason to, it's like, I'm going to be me right now. It's really wild. Which a lot of people would say, oh, I wouldn't want to tell AI that. No, it's actually, we're going to start to see, you'll see this. We tell AI way more than we tell a regular human. Okay, now, just a couple of thoughts on websites. Does anybody have any questions, though, about self-service before I finish that one? I know that was, the reason why I saved that to the end is because I know that is very against the grain of what we're doing, which is an argument, a strong one, as to why we probably should be considering it. And I really hope somebody does it. All right, just a couple quick thoughts, because I saw a few things and I just had to mention a few of them. Where's Tillman? Right here. All right. So Aaron, a bunch of you have this. Many of you have this, like this thing here on your homepage. I think the same company must have done your homepage. Here's the thing, guys. This is fine, but it's not doing the job. If you do this, it should link to the article, to the full video in your Learning Center that addresses this with 1,500 words. The answer that I'm going to see in here when I click on this is junk. It's like 2-3 sentences. I'm not satisfied. I wasn't happy. And I kept seeing this same setup on like 20% of the websites in this room. You have this. Stop doing what everybody else is doing. No bueno. All right? No more of that. Next one. So, Lloyd Baker, where you at? Yeah, Lloyd. What I really loved about this is there was a lot of websites that I went to that I felt like were really just celebrating the attorney. And what I liked about when I went to your website with this image here, I felt like we were celebrating the family and the results. I think as a whole, we don't do that in the room as well as we could. I would ask you, when you look at your homepage, who is the hero? Are your customers the hero? Or are you the hero? You're the guide, but you're not the hero. And so, one book that I recommend that you read about that, it's just phenomenal. It's the most bought book with They Ask You Answer. It's called Story Brand by Donald Miller. If you get a chance, read Story Brand by Donald Miller. You'll thank me later. But this was great. And it was, they're the hero, but it's also social proof. I was surprised at the lack of social proof we have on our homepages in this room. When I say social proof, I mean images, videos of families experiencing the benefits of working with us. Some of you don't have that at all. Like Stefan was showing me his new website. He's done a lot of great things, but he had zero social proof on his website on the homepage. More of this on homepage. More of this. By the way, notice he didn't put the money amount. I didn't care though. I'm like, that's so cool. See, some people would say, I can't show a check with a family because I'm not allowed to show it. Lloyd says, I can put a check that says we won. Smart. Outside the box. Here's my hammer friend again. So yeah, okay, couple things. Some of you are using this tool here. Raise your hand if you're using this tool here. This tool's pretty good. I would actually challenge you, though, to talk to me a little bit more empathetically, some of you, in this. I think this is great because it gives me a chance to meet the proprietor of the firm very quickly. So I like this a lot. This was good. This, no bueno. Because this, here's the thing. If you ever did a heat map of your homepage, guess how many people will read all of this? Nobody reads that. The home page is not meant to teach people so much. The entire purpose of your home page is to get someone to the next page. That's the purpose of the home page. And the problem is you got some stinking SEO company that says, hey, we need all these words. It doesn't get read. It looks like crap. And there's a bunch of better ways to do it. Keep in mind, I'm only showing this because you all have done a lot of great things on your site, right? So I'm showing you this because I know you need to hear it. Great. More of this. More personal. Love the chat. Smart. Don't need all that. Not nearly as effective. One of the things that I notice about some of your sites is that when I went to them, they felt old. Rob's felt like, and I'm not saying this because Rob brought me in, Rob's felt like one of the most modern feeling websites in the room. The images were modern. It was like the photography was right. It just had this vibe of this is a modern, forward-thinking company. Some of you have images and even videos that I swear look like they were recorded in the 80s. You know who you are. And if you're showing a video that looks like it's your son, but it was you 20 years ago, listen, I mean, it's okay, but we have to feel modern. When I went to this, I felt modern. I felt cutting edge because the images and everything was so clean about this. So good job on that one, Rob. Good job. Should I beat anybody else up? No, I'm not. We don't have a lot of time. I don't even know where I put my phone. I literally have lost my phone as I've been talking to you. So we're going to be done in 15 minutes. And I don't have much time to talk about AI. But I do want to mention it to you. Raise your hand if you're using AI in your marketing consistently right now. Okay? Everything, I know Michael's like passion is AI. Are you speaking any on AI while you're here? Okay, cool. So I don't need to say much here. I will say, because I want to send everybody the slide deck, the big mistake with, of course, AI, and he's going to talk about this, is we just don't know how to prompt it the right way. If you're talking to ChatGPT, learn that there's a certain way to talk to it, and you get incredible content as a result. The big issue with AI is you have somebody that says, I use it, it sucks. Like, no, you suck at using AI. It is not the problem. AI is not the problem. The problem is garbage in, garbage out. But once we understand, when we're talking to AI, we give it a role. We give it the information it needs. We give it examples. And we tell it what type of output we want. And we give very specific instructions. When we do this, we get incredible results. And the cool thing about prompting is, once you've done it well, you just reuse the prompt over and over again. So case in point, let's say you all are like, I want to brainstorm like Marcus taught us this week, using the Big Five. I have kept this here for you so that you can put this prompt into AI and you can get the output on those titles that I was showing you earlier. You can see that. But notice, You're an expert on market share since they ask you answer business philosophy. You're also an expert content writer. Give it a roll. The big 5 they ask you answer topics are topics that people search for when they're consideration of conversion stage for buying a product or service. They are cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, best. Here's some specific examples. And so once you do this, that's the setup. Now you can tell AI, I want you to come up with 75 big 5 examples for this particular service that you offer. Motorcycle accidents. And bam, now it's going to pop them out and it's going to do it in a beautiful way. But you got to set it up the right way. The prompt is in here for you. And so I wanted you to have that so that you weren't fishing around for it later. All right. I've also got in here, I've got stuff for you on the prompts that I use to write better articles in a more human way. So this is here. And just to show you quickly, if I wanted to write a blog, if I wanted to write an article, the types of prompts you should be using. The introduction should identify the problem the buyer has, contextualize who they are. You can talk from their perspective and call their feelings out and empathize with them. A part of this is showing them that you understand their pain, fear, the concerns that they have and they feel. Essential for all of us in this room. So if you're using AI, I shouldn't feel like you're using AI. It should say human, human, human. Right for a 12-year-old. Make it easy to understand, provide relatable examples when sharing complicated information. And then you can give it its length. And so when you do it, and you do it the right way, let me show you an example of like, this is AI created. This is like if you're selling residential solar systems. Here's AI's first go. You're sitting at home, staring at yet another sky-high electricity bill, and you can't help but think, there has to be a better way. You've heard about solar energy. You've seen the shiny panels on your neighbor's roof, and even read about the environmental benefits. But the big looming question remains, how much does a residential solar system actually cost? We get it. The uncertainty around cost can be daunting. It's like standing at the edge of a pool wanting to dive in but not sure of the water's depth. We've been there. We've guided hundreds of homeowners just like you through this process. As experts in the field of solar energy, we're here to break down the cost for you step by step so you can make an informed decision. By the end of this article, you'll have a comprehensive understanding of the various components that make up a solar system, the factors that influence its cost, and the financial benefits you stand to gain. Let's dive in. Now that I have consumed because we get sent content from writers that work for the companies that we work with. This is good writing. Does everybody agree? And that's AI. And that's how it should look and feel if you're prompting the right way. So May Michael's going to talk about that tomorrow. I just wanted to give you a couple of prompts. And one final thing is, one thing I did here is I said, I'm going to give a presentation on They Ask You Answer Endless Customers to a group of personal injury law firms this week. I want your help analyzing how well they're doing from a digital marketing, doing their digital marketing currently, especially with respect to They Ask You Answer, the big 5, video marketing, etc. Here's a list of their companies and websites. Please review and give me a full report on the good, the bad, and the ugly of their marketing and online presence. And then you click on deep research, which you all have access to if you're just paying $20 a month, which you better, okay? Click on deep research. It is unbelievable. The greatest new tool that ChatGPT has come out with is deep research. The thing that, is going to take away the jobs of so many, deep research. Very powerful. Start using this every day. You can start with yourself and your own company. It'll analyze you in ways that you never could imagine. And you'll save money. You won't have to work with consultants. And deep research could do that for you right now. All right? So before I even looked at any of your websites, AI had given me a full-blown report. I knew so much because of the fact that it did all that work for me, like the job of multiple assistants. Okay? And if we're not doing that, we're going to miss out. Last thing I'm going to say on AI. Within the next 6 months, if you go to River Pools, you're going to see what looks like a person on video like you would be on a Zoom call. And that person's going to say, welcome to River Pools. I'm Digital Marcus. I'm not the real Marcus, but I'm using his brain. I'm using all the content he's ever produced to answer your questions. We've got two choices right now. You can ask any question, you can type it in, or you can say it verbally, and I'll answer it for you. Or if you would like, I could even give you an estimate for your swimming pool right now. Which would you prefer? That's coming within the next 6 months. The only thing we've been waiting on is the latency in the technology with the voice. Now it's pretty much there. And so I'm not saying that you need to do that tomorrow, but I will say this. You'll never be able to do experiences like that if you don't create your own content. Because if you're going to have an incredible chat experience using AI, do you want it using the information that's on the internet from your competitors, or do you want it using the information that you have already produced on your own website? So everything that we talked about today is relevant to your ability to use AI the right way in the future, and for AI to be able to recommend you, and this whole you-know-what storm that's coming, and I can't sit here and say what's going to happen, but I do know that everything we've talked about is going to make a difference in your ability to become a known and trusted brand. Okay, if anybody wants the slides, here's my one ask, is that you fill out a little survey. It's like 3 questions. It's like 3 questions, okay? One of the questions on there is, would you like to learn more about Marcus's company that helps people do everything you heard today? You do not need to say yes to that. I'm letting you know it's a question on there, though. So that's that. If you want the slides, I will send them to you, and you'll have them by 2 days from now, 48 hours from now. Okay? I want to ask everybody to do me a favor. I said a lot of things to you today. Rob started us so properly with saying 3 things. 3 things. So I'm going to ask you now, based on what you've heard me today say, so I'm going to leave one thing for the rest of the time. Write down the 2 things that you're going to do that you heard today from me that you're committing to take action on in front of God, angels, and all these witnesses. Okay? All right, 2 things. Go ahead and write it down. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, but you got to write it down because otherwise it's not real. It's a wish. We want to plant. 2 things. Stephen's like, I got 12. 2, Stephen. I lost my cell phone.
Oh. Is it an iPad?
Yeah. Oh. I got it. There it is. You got 2 things, Jimmy? Yeah. Jay, you got 2 things?
I don't, but Hugo or Lucy will.
Jay, you're going to put me in a depression. Let's go. Step up. I need 2 from you. Not just Hugo. Not just Lucy.
I'm playing with the chat GPT 4. Finding out what's wrong with my website right now.
Well, you should be using 4 or 5 by this point. And use the deep research, like I said, and it's going to blow your mind. All right, Carl, what you got?
I'm going to shoot 30 Big 5 videos.
30 Big 5 videos. Love it, Carl.
And I'm going to do attorney bio videos for the email address.
Attorney bio videos. Love it, love it, love it. Now, let me just say, if I had to make a recommendation of the most important hire you could have over the next year, it's a full-time videographer on staff. Full-time videographer on staff. How much video should you be doing? You should be producing, at a minimum, 3 to 5 videos a week. 3 to 5 videos a week at a minimum is what you should be producing. Everybody hear that? You won't do this if you're outsourcing your video. You can shoot with the phone, but the problem is you're still going to need somebody to edit. Full-time videographer, spend the $65,000 a year. That's the average. Get that person, please. I talk a lot about them in They Ask You Answer. I also talk a lot about them in Endless Customers. Make sure you get Endless Customers That is here. Just if you go to endlesscustomers.com, you can pre-order the book. It comes out the second week of April. All right, what's another one? Patrick, 2 things.
So one was going to be looking at the frequently asked questions.
Okay, what about them? What are you going to do?
Doing the videos for that.
Yeah, so you got your FAQs. It's fine that you list the FAQs, and you should list them somewhere, but it should feed to that learning center where you've got all the videos they could watch or the articles or both.
We don't have enough of text.
That's right.
It's way too short.
That's right. Okay, good. What else?
So, and then Carl was the other one, doing those other videos you talked about, 3 to 5 minute videos.
Good. I like it. Hugo, what's it going to be?
I like how you educating your clients as far as your product, right? So that's where I'm trying to do, educating them as far as the importance of hiring J. Murray Law Group by giving them all this information. I know a lot of people see intake as sales. I see them as we're educators because we're going to educate this client as far as their specific motor vehicle accident. So I like that.
So what's the SMART goal, the measurable goal that you're going to do based on what you heard?
Just providing all the information that we can.
How?
By putting it out on our website and just
Text or video? Or both? How many articles are you going to do a week?
5 to 10.
All right, if you're going to do 5 to 10, that's great. Somebody needs to own that, though. If somebody doesn't own that and they've got 12 other hats they're wearing, they won't produce that many. And make them good, and make sure each one has a personal story from the firm in there. It shouldn't feel like AI. Okay? Word. Steven, what you going to do?
Create a learning center on the website and do the Big 5 video content.
All right, create a learning center, Big 5 video content, which is going to be easy to do. Now, how are you going to address this issue with video? Who's going to do the video for you?
I'm going to hire somebody, in the process of hiring somebody, a marketing person.
Good. Listen, if you're getting a marketing person, if that person can't do video, I'm probably not hiring that person unless you just got a ton of money and that you want to hire 2 people. Unless you got the budget. Don't get a marketer that only knows marketing to the degree that they can't produce stuff. If they can't write and they can't do video, I am hesitating as to whether or not I make that hire. Monty, what you going to do?
Well, I think what I decided, I just need to get a marketing team. That's the first thing.
Monty, I think that was a great realization.
Yes.
No, but I'm serious. It's like you have to become a media company, just like OKC is a media company that does basketball. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like you got to think like a media company. And if you don't have any marketing team, if you're outsourcing all of it, for years in legal, we've been outsourcing everything. We've been outsourcing SEO, we've been outsourcing all of our paid, we've been outsourcing all of our content, and for the most part, it shows. Take your industry over by you being the artist that's holding the paintbrush. Please consider that, if you would. I know it requires a greater leap of faith because it means now you've got somebody on payroll. By the way, some of you are, like Michael was telling me today, you've got 10 employees in Brazil, you've got 10 employees in Pakistan. Like, I have a full-time videographer that's in the Philippines, $1,500 a month, 40 hours a week. He's freaking awesome. I love him. And he's living large in the Philippines, and he's getting $1,500 a month. He feels great. I feel great. I've got 2 videographers. One that does all the shooting, one that does the editing. So I do way more because what you find, Lloyd, is a lot of the churn, the slowness happens in the editing phase. So if you get somebody that's doing that side of it, everything goes fast. That person I would outsource overseas.
For content writing, are you keeping that in-house or outsourcing?
Content creation, do I do it? Yes. Final thing I'll say to answer this question from Stefan. You need to get to the point where you are producing all of your own content. The future of the internet will be won by those people who can create their own stuff, not by those who write a check each month and hope to get some deliverables. You just can't be extraordinary by outsourcing all of it. It doesn't mean that you don't occasionally use a videographer. We've got some videographers here today. It's awesome. And for maybe 10 to 20% of your videos, outsource it, especially if they're too high level. Yes. But you got to learn to do these things in-house, right, Aaron? Inherently, you feel that it's right, don't you? This is the way. Well, I've had a good time. Have you had a good time? You're like, we actually learned a little bit from a pool guy. I mean, it's not totally dumb. Give it up for Rob. We appreciate it. Thank you.